today.
Great.
And so she has to go at 2:30 or thereabouts, isn't it, Rachel?
Yeah, I've got to get.
So we haven't done this before, because normally we just start and then we just everybody has a conversation and chat. But I've asked Rachel today to come on and share some information, because we have so many new members who are not really au fait with some of the terminology and the understanding in science. And so we're sort of going back to basics here. And we need to do that, because we all learn from it, because we all forget little bits and pieces along the way, and we need reminding.
Great idea.
So all I would say is I'll hand over to Rachel, and Rachel will explain what she's going to do and how she wants you to interact and so on. Okay.
Thank you, Trevelyan. I'm just going to share my screen. Should be seeing hopefully a big picture frame with a welcome inside.
Yeah.
Good to go. Okay. So I've just seen John and Lynn join. I do know John and Lynn from the PhD, but my name's Rachel Stevens, and I am a qualified nutritional therapist, but I'm talking to you today as an ambassador for the PhD, which is a charity we mentioned before that advocates for, I guess, healthy living or giving information about healthy living to people up and down the country, as well as lobbying for change from the government down. So today's presentation is for information only, and it's not medical advice. So if you're concerned about your health in any way, you really do need to go and seek medical advice. If you're medicated for high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes and wish to begin a low-carb way of life or to begin a new exercise regime, please go and seek medical advice first. It's more than possible to do it, but you do need to have your meds adjusted, and that's not something I or anyone else other than your own healthcare professional can advise you on. Okay, so let's have a look at the aim of today. And today's aim specifically is to see if reframing type 2 diabetes will change the way we manage our health, whether we have type 2 diabetes or not. So I don't know whether all of you guys listening have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but I would like to think it doesn't really matter. We're just using type 2 diabetes as a way into reframing illness and health. So there's a couple of phrases on there that I've highlighted because I just want to make sure we're quite au fait with what they mean. So the first is reframing. So someone's going to have to be brave. I'm going to put a question out there because it's a bit boring if I just talk and everyone listens. And please do ask questions along the way. It's much better when it's an interactive format. So what do I mean by reframing? What does reframing mean? Come on, somebody be brave. Who's going to go?
The way we think.
Yeah, perfect, Pam. Excellent. Yeah. So it's really, I don't know if you, my tiles are covering up that, but I've got two people looking at a shape on the floor and they're each looking at it from a different perspective. And yeah, sure, reframing is just looking at things, not changing anything, but just looking at things from a different angle, a different perspective. Brilliant. Thanks, Pam. So the other key phrase that we need to consider is, what is type 2 diabetes? So let's put that out there. What is type 2 diabetes?
Consistently high blood glucose, I guess.
Yeah, high blood glucose. Yeah. Anyone else? What do we know about it?
It's caused by an excess intake of carbohydrates.
Can be driven by excess carbs. Yeah. Anything else?
You're sick.
Say again?
It makes you sick.
Yeah.
It
does. Is that Louis?
It can make you blind or...
Yeah, it has huge consequences. It can make you blind. Yeah. Any other consequences we know about?
Amputations.
Yeah, amputations can occur. They're the leading cause of amputation in this country, believe it or not.
Heart disease.
Yeah, it's linked to heart disease, very much so linked to heart disease. There is a school of thought that thinks everybody with, or most people with heart disease are actually undiagnosed diabetics, if indeed they're not already diagnosed. So here's just a collection of the things that you've already said, plus some others that people often say when they're asked what type 2 diabetes is. But if you were to look up on the NHS website, as a patient, you'll be told this, that it's a common condition that causes the level of sugar, or glucose as we call it, in the blood to become too high. So we know that when we eat certain types of food, or carbohydrates as they're known, when they're digested and absorbed, they always become glucose, with the exception of a few that become fructose, but essentially they all become glucose. So what do we mean by carbohydrates? Well, we recognize foods high in carbohydrate as sugars and starches. So once we eat them and they're broken down to the simplest form of sugar, we know that as glucose. and it's glucose. Eating too much glucose drives diabetes and gives us too much glucose in the blood, and that's when diabetes is diagnosed. So that's the conventional message. A medical person would see type 2 diabetes as a disease of glucose dysregulation. In other words, not normal blood sugar. Okay, so that's how a medic would think about it. Bit of a posher term, but there we go. And this is when your blood glucose surpassed or rose above certain thresholds, that's when you would be diagnosed as a diabetic. So we can see that when your HbA1c is greater than 47 millimoles per litre, for people in the UK, that's when they'd be diagnosed with diabetes. John, if you're listening, I know you pulled up a little table last week that converted UK measurements of HbA1c metrics to American ones. So perhaps you can do that for us after the presentation for our 2 listeners from Canada, and that'd be helpful.
Use the metrics in Canada.
I think Canadians probably have to understand it. It's quite easy. You just multiply by 18 or divide by 18.
All right.
In Canada, we use the metrics.
Yeah, we
If you're in Canada, certainly, yes, you do.
Cool. So these levels may seem a bit arbitrary, but that's what the conventional diagnostic criteria are. So the key question we need to ask ourselves then is, does that mean I shouldn't eat carbohydrates?
Yes.
Well, arguably carbohydrates are fine. We know that less than 4 grams of glucose in the whole of our blood supply, or otherwise known as our circulation, doesn't really cause any effect whatsoever. And 4 grams of glucose is really about a teaspoonful. But more than 4 grams of glucose in our circulation then becomes toxic. Okay, so there's an issue. So if we look back to the founder of chemistry and medicine, Paracelsus, there's an old adage that he first came up with, that it's the dose that makes the poison. There's nothing wrong with carbohydrates, but there is something wrong with the amount of carbohydrates we eat. So we mustn't demonize carbohydrates. We must demonize the dose of carbohydrates we're having. Okay, so it's just about controlling the dose, because it's the dose that makes the poison. And similarly, we know that when we go on the motorway or the highway, maybe if you call it that in Canada, if it's the same as the States, that we all love to get from A to B quickly on the motorway, but nobody wants to be stuck on there. And blood glucose works the same in our circulation. That sugar likes to travel quickly around the body, but when there's too much in it, we end up with traffic jams, and we end up with those things that Louis mentioned, eye disease, kidney disease, amputation. Okay, so the next key question. If having more than a teaspoon of glucose in our circulation, or that sort of blood network, as we like to think of it, is toxic, well, then what happens? Do we go straight to amputations and blindness and kidney disease? Not quite, because this is where the hormone insulin comes along. So the body has a natural response to having too much glucose, and it's learned to adapt itself and create this hormone called insulin over thousands and thousands of years. Thank goodness, or else we'd all be walking around with legs missing and arms missing and eyes that don't work. So that's cool. And rather than looking at insulin like this chemical structure in the center of our picture, because that is what insulin looks like, that's a diagram of the molecule insulin, I like to think of it more as somebody who goes around sweeping up the glucose out of the circulation network, taking it off the motorway, if you like, and parking that glucose somewhere much safer. So it doesn't get rid of glucose, doesn't make it disappear, it just takes it away from that fast moving circulation and stores it somewhere safer. So before we go on any further, it might be worth spending a minute just trying to understand a bit more about what a hormone is, because this certainly helped me when I was learning about health. So we're all familiar with the wired networks we have in our home. We know that there's all sorts of cables running behind our plasterboard, for example, linking up our power sources at our sockets, or even our lighting and our ring main. Similarly, the body has these networks, these hardwired networks. We've got the circulation that we mentioned before, the circulatory system, and we've also got the central nervous system, where nerves run from our brains down to our fingertips and toes, and then the messages go back up to our brains. But not all messages or systems or networks in the house are hardwired. We're familiar with the wireless networks that we have, where a message starts at a router, or a router, I think you might say in Canada. And a signal is sent over, a wireless signal is sent through Wi-Fi, and it ends up at a device. It's like a laptop or a phone or a speaker. Well, similarly, the body has, I don't know if you can see that, my squares are, I'm just going to have to move my squares of you guys to the left so I can see that. The body has the equivalent of a router. It has organs that are glands in the body, and these glands make chemical wireless systems, and we know those as hormones. And that system of messaging is known as the endocrine system. And this chemical messenger travels through the body, not through the nerves, not through the circulation, just travels chemically through the body to target cells. So that's what a hormone is. So this hormone insulin, that's the hormone that helps us clear the sugar from our circulation, is produced in a gland known as the pancreas. And it looks a bit like an upside down smoking pipe. And that's stored just behind the stomach. Okay, so the pancreas is a bit like the equivalent of the router. And the Wi-Fi signal is our hormone insulin. And where it ends up going, where that signal goes, is to all the cells throughout our body. Well, nearly all of them. There are a few cells that don't use glucose, but most of the cells use glucose in our body from top to tail. Okay, so that's just a little by the by on insulin and hormone, what a hormone is. So once insulin picks up the hormone from this motorway network in the blood circulation and it takes it to the cells, what happens when it gets there? Well, insulin opens the door of the cell and shoves the glucose in, and some of that glucose is used immediately, whether that's for walking and motion, locomotion, or for thinking, or for keeping our body systems going, like our digestive system, for example. And what's not used immediately is stored in the medium term. It's stored in muscles and a bit in our liver, mostly in our muscles. And that's known as, that storage form is known as glycogen. And that's a medium term storage of glucose. And we tend to access those stores during the night when we're asleep, when we're no longer eating. But quite a bit of our excess glucose, if we eat far too many carbohydrates, are stored as fat. And arguably fat is the most benign form of storage. It's the longest term use of glucose storage. And we can store that fat either underneath our skin, or we can store it in and around our liver and our other body organs, typically in the trunk. And that's fine. That's a really clever evolutionary adaptation for getting that toxic level of sugar out of the blood supply and into somewhere that's much safer to store. But unfortunately, when we do too much of that, when we have too much fat that's storing our glucose, that's when things can become dangerous. So I just want to, this is the reason I've given this talk today, is because I referenced this graph last week, and Trevelyan quite liked the look of it. And this is a graph that I saw on a talk by Professor Ben Bickman, who is a professor, and his area of expertise is insulin, the hormone insulin. And he produced a graph like this, and I think this is really, really interesting. So while we can see, I don't know, I'm just going to move this again, hopefully. While we can, let's see if I can move that out of the way. Sorry, let's go back. While we can see there's not a lot of information on this graph, what we do have is insulin in green and glucose in yellow. And along the x-axis at the bottom is time. Now, what I mean by time is somebody's whole lifetime. And while there aren't numbers and data per se, we can see that over the course of a lifetime, the insulin rises a lot earlier than glucose. And this is an important characteristic because quite often we think of insulin and glucose rising together concurrently, as if in some sort of linear relationship, but that's not the case at all. Okay, insulin rises much earlier than glucose. And we know when we eat too many carbohydrates, when we have a standard westernized diet, that our insulin rises relatively early on in our life. So why do insulin levels climb? Well, this analogy comes out of a book by Jason Fung, an intermittent fasting guru. And he likes to think of insulin being a bit like a station guard, pushing the sugar into the cells or the passengers into the carriages and having to work pretty hard at doing it. And when our cells become too packed, what would have taken 1 molecule of insulin 1 week to get the sugar in the cells, then the next week may take 2 molecules of insulin, because the carriage or the cell becomes a bit resistant to the effort of 1 station guard, 1 molecule of insulin. And we refer to that phenomenon as insulin resistance. And insulin resistance climbs over the course of a lifetime when we feed our bodies a standard westernized diet. So the phenomenon of more and more insulin over the course of a lifetime is also known as hyperinsulinemia, a rather long and posh word, but that basically breaks down to too much, hyper, insulin, meaning that hormone, emia, meaning found in the blood. So too much insulin hormone in the blood. So we know that insulin resistance precedes or comes before the time when our blood sugars go out of control. And when insulin rises to a point where the pancreas, that router, can no longer keep up with generating the hormone insulin, those insulin levels start to drop. And at that point, if we look in the middle of our graph, and we can see the green line going down, we notice that glucose really starts to rise rapidly. And that's the point where we flip from being insulin resistant into type 2 diabetes. Okay, that's the point where it switches over. And if you'd like to see more about this, then I would recommend that on the bottom of this slide, I've got a YouTube link for you there, but you can Google flipping the switch and Ben Bikman, B-I-K-M-A-N. You can Google that, you can search for that on YouTube, and you can watch a presentation that he delivers that goes into a little bit more detail. And for those of you interested in learning a bit more, I can't recommend that highly enough. But also, we can sort of reverse engineer it. And we know that if we reduce the amount of carbohydrates we eat, we reduce our blood sugar, and we reduce the amount of insulin we need to produce over time. So this is completely a reversible phenomenon. But what does insulin resistance look like? How can we tell we've got insulin resistance? Well, if you look at the person on the left, you'll see that they're overweight. If you look on the person on the right, you'll see they're of normal weight. So we cannot just say that overweight people have insulin resistance, because it exists in both types of person. But typically, if you are overweight, you'll tend to be carrying your weight around your middle. Your arms and your legs will be a bit sort of out of proportion. They'll be a bit skinnier than perhaps you might expect. And you'll have this sort of round, blown up balloon look around your middle. Okay, that's typical of insulin resistance, rather than having rolls and rolls of fat along arms and legs and trunks. Okay, that's a typical presentation of somebody with obesity who has insulin resistance. But as I said, you can be of normal weight and have insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is also known as metabolic syndrome. And to be diagnosed with that, you need any of the 5 characteristics in the middle of this slide. So you don't have to be overweight, but you could have high blood pressure, you could have high blood sugar, you could have a high triglycerides, or you could have low HDL cholesterol, which is sort of marketed as the good cholesterol. Any of those 5, and you're diagnosed with metabolic syndrome. And interestingly, there's only 12% of the United States population who have good measurements in all of those 5 characteristics. Just 12%. That is an astounding figure. So what causes insulin resistance? Well, Trevelin's group is all about this phenomenon of hyperinsulinemia, too many carbs in the diet. And that is one driving cause of insulin resistance. Okay, too many carbohydrates in the diet, raising your blood glucose. A second one is cortisol. And what drives cortisol? It's another type of hormone, another Wi-Fi-like message, chemical message that travels through the body. Well, that's principally driven by stress. Maybe some meds you're on might rise cortisol, but stress is a key driver of cortisol, chronic cortisol production, chronic stress hormone. And the third driver of insulin resistance is inflammation. And we can see, I'll just move this over, that foods that are very inflammatory tend to be foods containing processed oils. Okay, they are highly inflammatory, and we can talk about why another time. But take it as read that any of those oils that you see on the shelf that look goldeny color, that are rather cheap, that aren't hand pressed extra virgin olive oils or things like that. It's cold pressed. If they're mass produced, they're highly inflammatory. So why is junk food so bad for us? Well, unfortunately, junk food drives insulin resistance with a two-pronged attack. It's like a pincer movement. It gets us both sides. It's high in carbohydrates, which we know drives blood sugar up, so which results in a high insulin response. But also, most of it's cooked with inflammatory oils. So that's why junk food is bad. It's not because it's not virtuous. It's because it has two mechanisms that drives insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, we know, or science tells us, that it's the cornerstone of so many non-infectious modern diseases. So we can see diabetes in the yellow, but we can also see it's the cornerstone of heart disease, some cancers like bowel or prostate or breast cancer in particular, those three cancers, a fatty liver or polycystic ovary syndrome, erectile dysfunction, migraines, arthritis, stroke, dementia, and obesity. So insulin resistance is the driving force of all those chronic diseases. They all have something in common. And I don't know about the Canadians among us, but we have a show in England. It's on a Saturday night sometimes, and it's called The Wall. And you essentially drop a ball in at the top of a very posh pegboard like this, and the ball bounces down all the way down to the bottom, and it could land in any one of the compartments at the bottom. And insulin resistance works similarly to this. I could pop a ball in the top that says insulin resistance, and it will ping pong its way down and land in any number of presentations of modern disease, whether that's diabetes, heart disease, cancer, PCOS, stroke. They're all essentially linked by insulin resistance. So the key question for us really, whether or not we have type 2 diabetes or not, is to say to ourselves, when we're about to choose our food or we're about to eat, is how will the food I'm about to eat affect my insulin resistance? Will it drive it up? Will it keep it nice and low? So let's review our original thinking about what type 2 diabetes is. And let's just take you back. We said that at the beginning of this presentation, we said that the conventional medical definition of type 2 diabetes was that it was a disease of glucose dysregulation or abnormal blood sugar. But perhaps if we reframe it, we could think of it as one of many presentations of insulin dysregulation, not glucose dysregulation, but insulin dysregulation, because it's the insulin that goes wrong first. Or in other words, we could reframe it as late stage insulin resistance. Now we know that we can reverse insulin resistance, and because it's possible to do that, it's possible to put type 2 diabetes into remission and to improve many other aspects of our health. So if there's nothing else that you take away from today, it's that there is a sense of hope. We can change and modify our lifestyle and our diet, and we can do things that will reverse insulin resistance. And insulin resistance changes quickly. We can change the level of insulin resistance we have in our body within a week. It's perfectly possible to do it. Okay, so going back to the aim of the session, which was to see if we could reframing type 2 diabetes would change the way we managed our health, whether we have type 2 diabetes or not. Just like to spend half a minute thinking, actually, I think if type 2 diabetes as late stage insulin resistance, will that help me with my lifestyle choices? Okay, that's essentially it. If anybody would like to contact me, I'm more than happy to take emails, and that's my email address there, and I'll leave that with Trevelyn. But let's pause there and see if anybody would like to ask any questions.
Just can I ask a nutritional question?
Can I just pause you there? Trevelyn, I can't hear you, just to let you know, Trevelyn. Thank you for your clap, Louis. Sorry, who was speaking?
Sorry, I was just saying, if people want to speak, just check to make sure you're not muted and try not to talk across each other. Okay, I'm shutting up now.
I just was going to ask, because I've had a fews comments about people, and no one can decide whether something like organic cold pressed, so I emphasize those 2 points first, rapeseed oil not for cooking, but for making mayonnaise, do you think that'd be safe, or do you think you'd still avoid it?
Cold press means as less processed as possible. So cold press is about the best way we can get oil. I have got a slide somewhere on oils that I can leave with Trevlin, and it does tell you the proportion of saturated fats to mono and polyunsaturated fats. Basically, we want to be eating fats with as little polyunsaturated fat as possible. And I can talk another week about how we can make an analogy to understand saturated and unsaturated fats. But if you're not cooking with it, it's not going to come under conditions where it destabilizes. So it's not going to be too bad for you. So the rule of thumb is, if we're using oils to eat cold, if we're eating oils cold, the best things to do are to have cold pressed oils, but to never cook with them, because these oils tend to, at high temperatures, become unstabilized. And a bit like when you leave a bike out in the rain, it rusts, you know, that is oxidation. These oils do the same thing. So ideally cook with solid fats that at room temperature are solid, like coconut oil, like lard, like beef dripping, butter as well. They tend to be less inflammatory, they're prone to less oxidation than the processed oils. But no, I think a cold pressed rapeseed oil is okay. It's okay. But I'll look up the distribution of saturated mono and polyunsaturated fats, and I'll get that slide for you another day. Is that okay, Amanda?
That's brilliant, thank you. Because it's interesting, sure, isn't it polyunsaturated fats that we've been told for decades that's what we need to eat? Like
yeah,
flora and so on.
Yeah, and that really harks back to the beginning of the industrial industry, where previously saturated fats, the animal fats, were produced in sort of slaughterhouses, and they were all kind of associated with grime and grub and disease. And then up popped these beautiful clean factories at the beginning of the 1900s, and they seemed very pristine and shiny and chrome plated. But of course, they were driven by profit making. But that's the sort of message, was that they were cleaner, they were more modern versions of something that was associated with death and dirt and whatnot. But we know that processed oils are processed similarly to the way petrol is processed. The processing is huge. And if you saw an vegetable oil processing plant, it would look like a petrochemical factory. It's ridiculous. And they even bleach the oils to make them look golden, because they're pretty sludgy and dark and brown and horrible before they bleach them. But we can go into that a bit more detail another week. But no, great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Right,
carry on, Steve.
Hello, right, I'm there. How about cooking with avocado oil or olive oil?
Same thing. I would save avocado oil and olive oil for my salads and my cold foods, and I would cook with solid foods. And whilst the monounsaturated oils aren't as bad as the polyunsaturated oils, they still are prone to oxidation under hot conditions. So they're not as bad, but they're certainly not as good as the solid stable fats that we find naturally, typically are animal fats or coconut fat. Okay, coconut oil. Okay, does that help?
Lovely, thank you very much.
Cool, brilliant. Anyone else?
Great. Rachel.
Hi.
I don't know whether you've got an answer for this, but my sister is type 1 diabetic, and I know that's a different sort of area, but whether there can be any improvements in anywhere to help with the, I suppose, insulin intake.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would advise you.
Can you see it with the headphones on? That's my sister.
Is that Lynn? Is it?
Yeah.
Hello, you're 2 down from Anne on my grid. Hi, Lynn.
Right.
I would say, before I run out of time, because I'm going to have to shoot off in a minute, there's a doctor called Dr. Ian Lake. Lynn and John know him very well, and they'll point you in the right direction of Dr. Ian Lake. He is a member of the PhD, and he is a type 1 diabetic GP. Now, we know there's a phenomenon called double diabetes. When you're type 1 diabetic initially, but over the course of your lifetime, you're exposed to more and more and more insulin, not because your pancreas produces it, because we know in type 1 diabetes, your pancreas can't produce it, but you take it from the outside in, you're injected with insulin. But the consequences of long-term insulin exposure, whether you take it from the inside or you create from the outside rather, or you create it from the inside, the consequences can end up being the same. So you can end up with type 2 diabetes, if you like, insulin resistance, because you've had what we know as exogenous insulin to excess, insulin from the outside in to your body. And again, the solution is very similar. You reduce your carbohydrate intake, but you need to do that with close medical supervision. Some GPs are very au fait with a low carb life for type 2 diabetics, but they need to find their confidence before they start treating type 1 diabetics the same. But there are doctors out there who do it. Ian Lake is a prime example. So please, John and Lynn, if you wouldn't mind giving Lynn and Anne his contact information, and I'm sure he'll be able to help. Okay. No, great question. Yeah, cool. Any other questions?
Sorry, it's not a question. I just wanted to say there's also for Lynn on Facebook, Type 1 Grit, which is for type 1 diabetics that live a low carb lifestyle. I've never been on it myself, but I know it's really good from people I know that've been on it.
Yes, so Ian is part of that as well, Amanda.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a look and I'll have a look at that, doctor. But my specialist nurse, no.
No, it's a big thing for healthcare professionals to even contemplate, some of them to even contemplate a low carb lifestyle, because they haven't been trained in it. So it's new. So we have to also be sympathetic towards the healthcare professionals in that they need to build their confidence and be sure that they're doing the right thing, because there isn't a healthcare professional out there that wants to harm you. They all want to do the right thing, but sometimes it's just a case of not having the information, the latest information to hand, and needing for them to build their confidence. But if you hit a real brick wall, I would advocate going to find an alternative healthcare professional, because they are out there. They are out there, and the word is spreading.
Thanks.
Any other questions, guys? Because I think I'm at that point where I'm going to have to cut and run and get my kids from school.
Rachel, I think this has been fantastic. And obviously, I'm so glad that you said you'll come back and do it again. This is all new ground for all of us to actually have somebody to come along and to share this, because as we know, we've been having these meetings for quite a while, but we've got so many different people coming along, and it's fabulous to see everybody. We just need to be reconnected with that basic ground root information, so that when we're having a conversation, we're all on the same page. So these are things that are ongoing, and thanks for saying that you've come back and shared about the oils and the fats and that. That's really
pleasure. No, it's been a real pleasure. And just as you go along, people build their knowledge as they learn more about a low carb way of life. But those words, insulin, hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, they're all words that over time we get more familiar with. So do go out and Google them again if you're not sure. Sorry if it was a bit rushed, or we were under time constraints today. But I think, Trevlin, you're recording this, so maybe you might be able to make it available.
I am,
so maybe we can go back and I need to rewatch things all the time. I don't take all the information in first time of viewing it. So hopefully, if some of this information was new to some of you, you can go back over and have another watch. And again, if this information was very familiar to you, but you want to learn a bit more about the relationship between glucose and insulin, go and Google Professor Ben Bickman, my favorite professor. Right, guys, with that, I'll love you and leave you, and I'll see you another week.
Okay, right. We'll see you soon.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye. Hi again, everybody. Right, we've got some new faces this week. I am not the best at remembering names, so please forgive me. So if you were on last week, I'm just going to bypass on that for now. I'm going to say hello to Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence. Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Then we've got Louis, we've got Rini, if you want to unmute yourself, Rini. Lovely to see Soha here with you. Thanks for joining us. And Steve as well. And Tom, long time, Tom. We've never met or spoken before. Tom's a great contributor on our Keep Fat Club on Facebook, and it's absolutely brilliant. And Lee, obviously, how are you doing down there in the West Midlands? Are you okay? You're on mute at the moment, Lee. So we're going to open the meeting up. Just to explain who we are. Lynn and John, along with myself, are ambassadors for the Public Health Collaboration here in the UK, which is a UK-based charity. And its primary aim is to, you know, I might not get this spot on, but it's to actually convince the medical profession that they need to rethink in terms of treating obesity and type 2 diabetes. Now, Lynn and John are very, very gracious, and they come along every week, and they specialize because they've got experience. And so if either got if you've got an opinion, it's got to be based on experience, or actually it's got to be based upon your own situation and real knowledge, which is evidence knowledge. So I don't answer questions on type 2 diabetes or anything like that. My own my own journey is a weight loss one, as is Tom Bennett's. So if I start with you, Louis. Louis, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
So do you want to just...
yeah, first time to be with you people. Maybe I'll do it a couple times. After that, I won't have a place where I can do it.
Okay, so what have you got out of Rachel's presentation, please?
Well, it's just confirming a lot of things I've been watching, like on Dr. Fung and other people, and even Dr. Bickman. I was watching that last week. So, well, the video that she mentioned about Dr. Bickman, they're flipping the switch.
Right.
I was watching that last week.
So what's your journey about? Is it weight loss or is it type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, it's weight loss, and also I did have a small heart attack last year, so it's all tied together. I've been carrying extra weight for most of my life, and so it's a big challenge. Even though I know for me, it's just a matter of eating less, you know, and probably less meals.
Okay. How does that make you? How does that make you feel? The thought of eating less.
Well, I mean, it's not something that I do readily, but I do it for my health. You know, like I'm trying. I know you mentioned the OMAD diet, or 1 meal a day, so I'm trying to do that. Maybe not every day, but I'm doing it today anyway. So I'm just going to be on coffee until I have dinner.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one there. There's me. I drink about 10 or 12 of these every day.
Drink coffee because, what does it say? Drink coffee because?
I drink coffee because adulting is hard. So I mean, I eat 1 meal every 2 days, but that's by the by. But one thing I don't do, Louis, and this is to everybody, I don't skimp on the size of my portions. You know, I do not try and eat small amounts of food. If I'm hungry, I'll go back for seconds. And that's important, because even though on 1 meal a day, you know, yeah, hunger is an issue when people send comments and saying, I'm craving sugar, what can I do? And people are trying to come up with some magic fix for them. Try doing this, try doing that, have this and have that. At the end of the day, it is what it is. You just got to get over it and get used to it. You know, otherwise, if you keep finding a way around it, it's always going to keep coming back all the time.
Yeah, so, if you starve yourself, you won't last, you know? Like,
that's right.
That's right.
Well,
you got to be satisfied when you do eat.
Yeah. And John, do you want to, Lynn, John, or anybody else want to come in? It's not about me, you know.
Well,
yeah, briefly. Louis, are you French Canadian?
Yeah, can you tell?
Thought I detected. Bienvenue.
Merci.
We, if you find you're getting hungry, trying to jump straight into 1 meal a day. I didn't know about this. I put my diabetes into remission 7 or 8 years ago now, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Luckily, I hooked up with Jason Fung and Megan Ramos over the internet, and they told me enough to get me started. But I found for me it was easier just to cut out 1 meal. I skipped breakfast, and that started me off on the sort of 16-8, where I didn't eat for 16 hours every day, and just ate my
And that's
meal.
much easier. Yeah, I've tried that.
I found that very easy, and as time went on, and I learned which foods to avoid, I then found I was getting less and less hungry. So I lost the hunger. And then as I stopped eating the really bad foods like bread, etc. I mean, we used to go to France on holiday every year when people could still travel. And I love going to France, but a couple of weeks in France eating their bread and croissants and
I don't know how they don't get fat. I don't have the secret.
That's the secret.
They don't, yeah. But
They eat a lot of fat.
and whenever that happened, because I was taking in the extra carbohydrates, I put weight on and my blood glucose went up and I became diabetic again. But I found that by learning gradually, one step at a time, which foods to cut down or cut out entirely, then I went on, and now I can eat one meal several days a week. Lynn eats one meal most days now because we just got into the habit.
Yeah.
So
you get
you obviously
less,
you've got a
less
grounding.
hunger.
Yeah, that's right. Now I don't think about it. At the moment, because of lockdown, we're not going out. We're not having opportunities for restaurant meals, which is one way that I tend to go slightly off piste. Now I was losing weight steadily during lockdown, and I'm quite light now. I'm 1.83 meters tall, and I'm only weighing 64 kilograms. So I'm trying to put a little bit of weight back on. But I eat as much as I can, but I get full because the food I'm eating is so nutritious and it's got so little carbohydrate in it that hunger doesn't bother me anymore.
No, and that's it. And if you look at some of the pictures that we put up of meals that we have, they're quite big. And we've generally, obviously, there's no potatoes or rice or pasta on the plate, anything like that. But there are probably about 7 or 8 different vegetables. I do tend to, a bit like Trevlin, I fry a lot of the vegetables, or I cook them in a sauce, and everything is all homemade. I don't have anything out of a tin or a packet. So everything, I know exactly what's gone into all the sauces and everything that I do. And it's, and I think that's what it is. I mean, even during lockdown, I've dropped a size during lockdown, which is, I'm amazed because there's so many people that I talk on Facebook with, or friends, local friends, and they all saying how much they put on and everything like that.
Trevlin, could you enable screen sharing, please?
Yeah, before we do this, John, can we just get some other comments from some of our other visitors, please? Lawrence, how are you doing? Lawrence Hills, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Whereabouts are you, Lawrence?
So I'm down in Red Hill in Surrey, sort of south of London.
Okay, and this is your first time with us. So, do you want to just tell us why you're here? And
yeah, so I just wanted to lose weight, really, basically, and yeah, I've just been trying to sort of understand the keto diet. So yeah, I came across some of your stuff, and that was really helped me. I mean, today was good. I just didn't really understand the insulin resistance piece, but that today has been very helpful. And I wanted to sort of really understand. So I'm finding it a bit easier to make food choices when I have the scientific understanding behind it.
Yeah.
So then it's a bit less of an emotional decision about food. It's a bit just like a factual one. Like, you wouldn't cross the road if it was dangerous. No. So if you know that certain foods are bad, then you sort of, or dangerous-ish, then it's easier to sort of make the decision. That's what I'm finding anyway. So yes, I'm just trying to do that. And I think I've done the keto thing, and that was good for a while, but I wasn't really losing. I was losing weight, but very slowly. And then I discovered that I had a bit too much fat in my diet, and since I've reduced the fat, then I've started to sort of lose weight a bit quicker. So that's been good. Okay,
did you get that off my video, just out of interest, Lawrence?
Yeah, that one in particular that really helped me. The one you did very, very recently. Yeah.
Okay, they demystifying the keto diet. Yeah, I mean, if it works, it can't be wrong, right? Really, welcome. Good afternoon. How are you? Where are you? Why are you here?
Hello, everybody. It's Renee. And
Renee, beg your pardon. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm in Central California, and I'm here because, like a lot of you, I've tried to lose weight and been on every diet, and I know that I want it to be a lifestyle. And I've tried keto, but I think I was eating too much food. And I love the premise here where we eat less, and my goal is to come to the OMAD diet, you know. And right now I'm eating 2 meals a day, and I can still see that I'm an emotional eater, and that it was a habit. And so especially in lockdown, you know, there's not a lot to do. And so I find myself thinking, I need to eat now. Well, I'm trying to, you know, have self-control, and I've had cramps, so I've drank pickle juice, which has really helped me, you know, and I know that I need more electrolytes. I've made the apple cider vinegar drink in my large container where I have salt. I had a pinch of natural salt, Himalayan salt, and
Yeah, I do that
cinnamon.
too.
And that I drink that all day with a straw, and that really has helped me to stave off hunger. And I think what I'm battling now is just the habit, the mental habit. And so I really like this group. I feel like I found my tribe, and I think this is a lifestyle that I can live with, you know. So I really love I took some notes today, and one of the reasons that I felt I needed to do this is because I went to the doctor, and even though I don't have any aches or pains, I'm 70 pounds overweight, and she says that I'm pre-diabetic. And so that made me think that I really need a lifestyle change. And so I'm really grateful for the information. I'm grateful for the grace that you guys give each other. It's our own journey, and I just feel like it's time. So I'm just grateful for everybody and all the meal sharing. That's really helping, giving me a lot of ideas. And so I'm just grateful and thankful. I just want to learn more. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Renee. I'm going to move on to Sharon. I've got you down as Shay Shay. I can't really see you very well, Sharon. I can't see your face. Is that you right down there at the bottom?
Yeah.
There. No. Hi, Sharon. Hello, welcome. How are you? Where are you? Why are you here, please?
Yes, this is my first time here, and I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. And I sorry I blew up your messenger. I kept trying to reach you.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I can find out the Zoom link. I just saw a video of you doing the 1 meal a day, and I've tried that in the past, and I just needed a support group. So I'm glad I found you guys, and this is my first time here, and I got a hold of someone who's on here now. Is it Michael?
Michelle.
Michelle. And she gave me the link, and I just jumped on. I just got off work. I did an overnight shift, so I'm here. I'm looking to find a lifestyle of weight loss.
Okay, so would you classify yourself as overweight at the moment and needing to lose weight?
Yeah, I need to lose about 45 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, we're here as a support group. We have a Facebook page, which is called Keep Fat Club.
I signed up for it. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're on that. Okay, Sharon, that's great. And what we do there, obviously, it's got to be practical, and it's got to be evidence-based. So we do encourage people to share their meals on there, and people, bless them, don't always get it right the first time, especially when on the journey. And we do try and help people, because we don't want to encourage bad habits, but people say, what can I eat on OMAD? What can I eat on 1 meal a day? You can eat anything you want. It doesn't make any difference, because OMAD on its own is just eating 1 meal a day. And whilst there are other benefits, it doesn't automatically mean that if you eat 1 meal a day, you're going to lose weight. If you want to lose weight, then you can combine it with a ketogenic diet. But again, you've got to follow that in the right way to make it work for you. And that's what we're all about, is to help people and answer the questions and guide them on track, you know, rather than just expect anybody to jump in at the deep end. I really appreciate you being with us here today. Are there any questions you want to ask, please, or anybody who can help you?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, I did the 1 meal a day, eating drive-through food. Like one day I had Wendy's, one day I had McDonald's, one day Kentucky Fried Chicken. You know, so I was doing that for a while, and I was losing some weight 1 meal a day. But then, you know, I got stressed with work and other things going on, and I started eating 2 meals a day of drive-through. Then I fell off the horse. So having a support group to come to once a week would be good for me to keep on track, and so yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Hi everyone. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
What about Michelle?
I'm gonna go over to Michelle, and then I'll come to Steve. I'll come to Soha, and then we'll just Lee, if that's okay. Lee, can I make you last? So if we come to you, Michelle, welcome. How are you doing? Why are you here? Where are you?
Hi. Thank you.
We're not hearing you. Sorry, properly.
Thank you. Well, it's good. Oh dear. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better. Yeah.
Are you hearing me? Okay. Yeah. And the signal is a bit funny here. Yeah, but I've been struggling with weight problem for quite a while now, and I'm 5'10", but I'm been classed as overweight or obese because what am I now? I'm 109 kilo, but I used to be like about 115 kilo. But I've been trying this. I've been on intermittent fasting for the past 3 weeks, and then I just discovered your website since about last week. And I've joined on, and I'm quite glad for the support. I've been looking at the meals because I struggle with this intermittent fasting, and so I've actually started doing the one where I eat at 8 o'clock and I don't eat again until midday. So I haven't really done the 1 day. I've tried the 1 a day, but it's been really a struggle. So for now, I do the one that maybe sometimes I finish at 4 o'clock or finish at 3. And I eat maybe a meal, but I tend to overeat a lot. And I realize the weight goes back on, so I'm struggling with eating. I might have like water, I might have maybe a cup of tea. So I've actually cut out sugar because both sides of my family, both my mom and my dad's side, they're like diabetic and stuff like that. So I try to eat like try to eat healthy. So I've cut out sugar. I've cut out like maybe like processed food. So I try to eat less, but I notice I end up like as soon as my feeding window is available, I'm just eating, just grabbing everything that I see. So I know that's a problem there for me,
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can I ask you, Michelle, are you aware of the foods that you shouldn't be eating?
Not really. That's what I'm trying to find out, because I've watched a lot of Dr. Jason Fung. Is it Fung? Yeah. And I've been watching videos about this because I desperately want to lose the weight. Okay. So yes, I think the food to eat, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So we don't concentrate on what we can eat, we concentrate on what we can't eat, and put it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Potatoes, anything that's grown below the ground, cut them out. Bread, cakes, pastries, so if you have to eat the takeaway from McDonald's, then throw the buns away, if you're going to have to get something from KFC, then throw the fries away. But really, you don't want to be eating anything that is carbohydrate, if you understand what that means. And so it's anything that's starch-related, bread, anything that's baked, anything that's sweet, anything that's not sauces have got carbohydrates in them. And that's the secret, is to reduce and eliminate the carbohydrate. So, but if you stick with us on the Keep Fat Club, we do keep putting things up there. And if you look at people's meals, you'll see that they are missing these ingredients. You don't see meals with potatoes on. You might see 1 or 2 with the odd carrot on it, which, okay, if you're on 1 meal a day, that ain't going to bother anybody. But somebody has a plate full of carrots and they're having it, every day and twice a day, then that would cause prevent from losing weight. But without making it too complicated, does that help you?
Yeah. What about rye bread? Because I've been using rye bread. Is that safe enough?
Bread is bread. No, bread is bread. Rice, no pasta. If you say I'll just have 1 slice a day, then it's 1 slice too many if you want to lose weight.
Okay, so this best to cut, because I used to have like whole wheat bread because I've cut out whole, and then but recently now I've been having just the rye bread, but as I say, all bread are the same. So
Okay.
okay,
I'm going to
but
move,
thank
move
you.
on to, thank you, Michelle. I'm going to move on to Soha. Hi, Soha. Welcome. Nice to have you with us. Where are you, please?
Well, yes, we've spoken before. I'm in Manchester,
Oh,
quite
yes. So
close
I
to
remember.
Warrington, yes. And the reason I joined this group, I have a medical background. I have a doctorate in pharmacy, but I have diabetes type 2 now. And because of PTSD, I've got fibromyalgia and ME, which is chronic fatigue. So all my life, I've used carbohydrate as a mean for energy, which I've been told that is good for me. But I've realized now that I've got insulin resistance. So I'm fighting several battles, which is I'm on many medications a day, SSRIs and several medications that is very difficult to lose weight with. Also, the chronic fatigue, when I'm on OMAD, it makes me very fatigued. So this week I've had twice relapse, which I've had to have something with carbohydrate in it because I felt quite sweaty and sort of shaky. But thank you for having me in your group.
Okay. Well, I just hope that along this journey that you'll find a way to reverse all your symptoms and get off your medication. Thanks for sharing that. Steve, hi Steve, you've been sitting there very patiently. Thank you for joining us. Whereabouts are you, Steve?
I'm in Rochester in Kent.
Okay, hi Steve.
Yeah, good. No, very interesting. I'm very glad I found this site because my journey started basically looking on diet, low carb diet, February of this year. I had a HbA1c test which came back 8.1, 660, and doctor wanted to start metformin, which I said, hold on. Been watching on the internet different videos and bits and pieces, and decided to take the path of a low carb diet, which I did. And after 12 weeks, the figures dropped down to 5,840, and hopefully the next blood test will be even lower. So that's to me the positive. Had one or two other issues in the past, and I've always struggled with weight, and unfortunately, self-inflicted. I do like all the wrong things in life. I've got a very sweet tooth, and I fall off the roundabout many times, and I go on diets, and I'll be very fruitful. We foster children, and unfortunately, there's often cakes, biscuits, and other things, and I think, oh, I'll just have a nibble. And once I have a nibble, then that's it, you know, I'm off. But this year I've been pretty good, quite strict on the diet, and the weight wise has come down well. Overall, I've lost just over 3 stone. I was 15.3 and I'm down to 12 stone. So at that weight, it's pretty good, but I really need to be down to about 11 stone, 11.7. But watching your video last night was amazing. And what I've done wrong of my body for the last, probably, to be truthful, probably 6 months, 5-6 months, I've been hovering around. The lowest I went down to was 11.11, and then I'll go up to about 12.2, and I fluctuate between those things. I very rarely go much past that. But what I've been doing is I've been trying to keep around 70% fats, and I never ever realised until watching your video. You say, you know, your body is using the fats I'm taking in, so I'm not burning the fat off my body, and that's where I've been for quite a few months, and that's a blessing. But as from tonight, it's going to change.
Hey man, good. That's a good result. It's a great result.
It's going to be interesting to see. I'm roughly about 12 stone, 12.1, I suppose, this morning, around those figures. So in a week's time, it's going to be interesting to see if I lose any.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Fingers crossed.
That's great. I've sort of maintained my weight since January of this year, because that's when I achieved the target weight. But I crept up to 12 stone, so I put on, if you like, from 11 stone 5 up to 12 stone, I put on 9 pounds. But I was,
How many pounds is that?
say
How many pounds is
9 I put on in 12 months. So I've been trying on the maintenance thing, right? But you know, sometimes you get a bit. I'll just have another handful of pork scratchings. Or I'll just have some berries and cream. And so you go into a bit of overdoing it. But since the 22nd of November, I went on eating one meal every 2 days, and my weight has gone down now from 12 stone to 11 stone 4 this morning.
Wow.
So, and so therefore, you know, I have stuck to it. I had one night the other night when I ate some crackers and some cheese that I got just fed up, and then I had night cramps and pains in my feet the next day. So I'm thinking, I gave myself a really good slapping, I did, and I got back on the wagon again. But yeah, stick to it, you know, and if it works, then it can't be wrong. Thanks, Steve. Tom, I'm going to say hi to you, Tom.
So I've been keeping myself on mute because my dog's a bit loud today.
Oh yeah.
Right on cue.
Yeah. They must be going in.
Eric, sure.
something?
Yeah, I thought I'd join in today. Hang on a minute.
Okay, I'll come to you, Lee. I'll come to Lee, Tom. I'll just come to Lee.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right. So the hardcore has continued. So this is week 5 for me. So first lockdown, as I mentioned last week, I sat in the garden drinking and eating what I wanted to and put an enormous amount of weight on. So lockdown 2, I thought we're going to do the other way now. We're going to cut everything out and we're going to lose weight, and it's worked. So I am doing it real hardcore. So today marks the end of the first week where I've been doing 1 meal a day, and I'm doing low carb, no more than 20 grams of carbs a day. And I've cut everything out apart from, I have a cup of tea in the morning with just a very small splash of milk. And then the rest of the day is just water. That's all I drink. Cut out all sugar, cut out everything rubbish. And I only eat at around 6 o'clock, and it's primarily meat and vegetables. I made a salad last night. I did myself a cauliflower and broccoli soup because I wasn't feeling as if I was getting enough veg in. I generally put pictures on the Facebook site, which I find massively inspiring to see and gives me great ideas as well. So as of this morning, my weekend is Thursday when the lockdown started. So, but as of this morning, I've lost 25 pounds. So to Steve's point, thank you all. To Steve's point, the reason why I have been with these guys for the last 2 to 3 weeks, I think it is now, is because I also saw Treflin's video and was on keto and was losing weight, but nothing motivating enough for me to keep on it. And then the light bulb moment from Treflin by saying, "You're eating too much fat." And I just thought, yeah, I am. So I've cut that out as well. And it's just dropping off me. And now, because I did it 4 weeks of no more than 20 grams of carb a day, that got me into the pattern of really not feeling hungry. So now I find 1 meal a day an absolute breeze. In fact, I only had soup last night because I just didn't fancy a proper meal because I only eat when I'm hungry. So yeah, so 25 pound down in 4.5 weeks. I'm bloody ecstatic at that. And yeah, I'm going to carry on. So Christmas is coming and I should just continue it. Because if I have one tiny bit of chocolate, game over, I'm back on it again. So no. So there we are. So yeah.
You've got a house full.
And I've got a house full of chocolate as well because, as I said, I work for Mars Chocolate, and they emailed me today as well. This is the other thing is, firstly, we've got two Christmas virtual parties where Mars have sent out bottles of wine for us to have during the meeting, which I won't be having. And then today we had an email today saying that they're going to be sending a load of chocolate out to all Mars employees as a thank you for working hard. So I'm now going to get even more chocolate delivered to the house, which I won't be eating. So
I'll give you my address.
It keeps me popular with everyone in the house because they'll be having loads of it and I won't. But so Steve, stick with it because it absolutely works. And that's where we are. That's where I am.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
Cheers. Thank you.
Tom. Sorry, Tom. I just brought Lee in while you were.
That's all right, mate. No. Oh, don't you start.
You'll have to make him a hoodie, Tom. You'll have to.
Yeah, I'll make him a muzzle in a minute. I'll tell you, nice tweed one, nice tweed muzzle. Well, I started all this back in January. Actually, I've been nearly a year now, and started with keto, and it was mainly because I didn't really think I had a lot of weight to lose. Like, you know, I mean, I knew I had sort of a few little bits, pockets here and there, you know, and but it was more my diabetes. I had type 2 diabetes. It was kind of runaway. I had it under control for many years, but all with stress and depression and, you know, usual stuff. Life. I got run over. I've got a spine injury, so life gets to me a little bit now and again. And then discovered keto through the internet, you know, like we all do, because no one in the medical profession wants to talk about it. And I was following at the time a diet of high starch, which seems to be my high starch diet, which my diabetes nurse recommended. You know, potatoes, rice, pasta.
Yeah.
You know, all the usual sort of rubbish. You know. And then I was mixing that with baked beans, and I was having cheese and butter on it as well. But obviously, the amount of carbohydrates in it probably negated the amount of fat I was having. And so my diabetes went through the roof, and they wanted me to put me on metformin again. I've been on metformin and glycoside in the past when it ran away after my accident. But I've had it kind of under control. I was off carbohydrates for a long time, but I didn't know why. I just felt that they were the wrong things to eat. But I was eating a lot of fruit. So I was kind of a cross between like a vegetarian, pescatarian, fruitarian, you know, for many years. And I kind of had my diabetes under control, but I was never losing any weight. You know, I've been 12 and a half, 13 stone, you know, for quite a few years. And I had blinding headaches all the time, and I had chest pains here. And I was thinking, well, I've had a cardioangiogram because they thought I was having a heart attack. So I know that my arteries were clear at the time. I had really good arteries at the time. This was, 8 years ago, I suppose. Things changed, right? And then I kind of naturally, you've probably seen all my Facebook pictures. You never see a vegetable anywhere on any of my plates. I've kind of naturally progressed to being a carnivore. And when I became a carnivore, everything just seemed to fall into place. You know, diabetes has just gone away completely. Apparently, I've been taken off the diabetes register, which is really cool, with diabetes resolved. So, you see, now a friend of mine a couple of years ago in America, we were having a Skype conversation, and he said that he'd just been diagnosed. He was looking really depressed. I said, "Oh, someone really happy." And he said, "I've just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes." I said, "Don't worry, it's not a life sentence. Just get off." And I actually said to her, I can remember the conversation, "Get off the carbs." I don't know anything about keto, and I was eating fruit and things, thinking those weren't carbs, you know. But I was eating a lot of rice, not thinking that was like heavily, you know, bad carbs or carbs that were bad, you know. It's because we're brainwashed to think it's brown bread we're supposed to think is really healthy, but it's not, you know. So it's but I've kind of got there now, which is really cool. But I have a bit of anxiety now and again, so I kind of want to join in some weeks, and then I kind of don't. So I just put another picture of me food up instead. And but you know, I mean, it's meatloaf week again this week.
Oh, great.
I've discovered how to make mayonnaise with avocado oil. I'm not too keen on avocado oil because of the carbon footprint. I pride myself in the fact that all my food, apart from the gas I cook it on, comes from within 50 to 100-mile radius of the house. Okay. You know, and that's all meat and eggs from the local farms and things, you know. But the avocado oil is the only thing that I have to have flown in. Obviously, not especially for me because I'm not that rich, you know. But I was interested to hear from Rachel about the cold pressed things like cold pressed rapeseed oils, because that might be a way of doing it. Because, you know, living in the west of England, there's a lot of rapeseed, and but I'm still a bit concerned about the amount of omega-3s, even though it's not cooked and you're not oxidizing it, so you're not damaging any of the LDL particles, which I had to explain to my doctor last week. But aren't you still getting a high level of linoleic acid, the omega 6s. That's we probably should have asked, but I need to find out.
I mean, Amanda is our expert on mayo and all the oils, so I'll ask Amanda to answer that question.
But no, I have the same queries as Tom, really, because that's why I asked about rapeseed oil, because it seems to be one of those kind of questionable, is it safe or isn't it safe? And there are, you know, because you're not cooking with it, obviously that takes away that oxidation problem, but it is a question of too much omega-3 and omega-6, you know, not working out, and there are other factors. So when Rachel said she would delve into oils a bit more, that'd be really interesting, because there is so much more to it than just it being oxidized, you know.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks, Tom. I'm just gonna move on to Lynn, that's Anne's sister down there in Worthing. So if you can just unmute Lynn, because Lynn's Anne's sister, my sister-in-law, lovely to have her with us, and she's been type 1 diabetic for years. So I don't know if you've got any questions, Lynn, any comments you want to make, you know.
I probably need to lose a little bit of weight, but it's more understanding of what I'm eating, because I eat a lot of carbs, because my diabetic nurse insists that I eat carbs, because I need the carbs, so I need the beans and the bread and all the rubbish. But as a longer time I'm having diabetes, I don't feel like the best, and I'm taking the insulin. And then it's reducing my sugar, because I just eat normal. I don't seem to overeat. I don't really eat chocolate because I've got used to not. It doesn't bother me about cake, chocolate, biscuits. If I have a bar of chocolate, I can have it for months, because I know it's bad for me. I don't drink alcohol because that affects me a lot. If I drink, it affects me in the night, but I seem to be pumping all the insulin in, and then I'm taking all the food in because I need it, because I've put the insulin in. So I asked them if I should start reducing the insulin, and they say I have to laugh, because it's just like it's a joke with me. It's a joke. No, take the same amount of insulin. So I did this morning, for instance. So I had 12 units of long acting and 12 units of fast acting. I had just Weetabix today. I thought, well, I'll try that. And then 2 hours later, my sugar's 3.6.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to get some toast and jam, because now I need to top it up. Then, before I've had my dinner, my blood sugar is 14.6. I know I'm having my lunch and having 7 units of insulin, because if I don't take it then and I put the lunch in, it's going to be high before my tea. Then give it about 45 minutes, my sugar will be 4 point something again. And it just goes round in a circle. So they want me to reduce my insulin, but carry on with the food. It doesn't make sense. So I just do what I want to do. And when I phone them up and they say, oh, so you're taking 10 units now, I'll just say, yeah, because it's easier. So if I went in hospital, they haven't got a clue what insulin I'm taking, because they pump the insulin into you and then they don't give you enough food for the insulin. Oh, it's just crazy. But you can't tell them, because they're the doctors.
No, you can't tell me.
Personally,
Actually, Lynn, it is not true that you can't reduce your insulin, because I'm a pharmacist and I know I've led diabetic clinic for type 1 before. You measure your blood sugar, and according to your blood sugar, actually, if your blood sugar is too low, you can reduce your insulin to 0. The Actropid, which is the fast acting, is related to your blood sugar. So it is not true what they've told you in the diabetic clinic, the nurses, because you can adjust your own insulin yourself, the fast acting one.
Yeah, I do adjust it. I do adjust it, but when they phone me up, they'll phone me tomorrow. They'll ask me again. Oh, well, we told you to carry on with 10. Well, I don't see the point. I have to
Just tell
adjust
them what
it
is
to
your
what
measured blood sugar. Yeah.
Sorry, Sola, do you want to say that again so that Lynn can hear you? Listen, Lynn.
I just said that you know, when you have had the diabetes type 1 with insulin for a long time, you get to actually know your body better. And my mother has got type 1, so she's on insulin Actropid and the long acting for nighttime. And she measures her blood sugar before, which is before food fasting. And if it's too low, then if you don't have carbohydrates, you can inject less insulin. Her diabetic clinic in Manchester, they've told her that she's in charge of her own insulin herself, depending on what she eats and how she eats it. So she basically measures the fasting glucose, and then if she eats very little carbohydrate, instead of 20 units, she just injects 10. So Lynn can actually get to know her body, and she can adjust her insulin up and down as her blood sugar measure comes up. It's not true that she has to do 12 units no matter what.
No, I do adjust it, but they don't want me to adjust it because they want me to, oh, do this for a month. Oh, do that. So I just adjust it. I don't listen to them anymore. I don't go to the dietitian because it's a waste of time.
Okay, Lynn, okay. Thanks for that. I'm going to bring Lynn and John in. I know John's been waiting patiently. He wants to screen share. So you got permission to screen share, John. John,
boys and girls, I've got to shoot. I've got a bit of work to do. So thanks for your time, guys.
I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you all next week.
Okay, and I put a message on about a meeting on Friday if anybody wants to watch it.
Okay,
send that on the message. All right.
See you later, guys.
Okay, God bless.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
thank you so much for that answer to Lynn. I'm going to pass it over to Lynn and John because I know John wants to share screen share.
You're muted, John.
Sorry,
He's been playing around while
I'm a
writing
bit
things.
slow on this. I've only spent 50 years as an IT professional, but it's all evolved beyond me now. Right, just taking up Lynn's point about type 1s and our friend Dr. Ian Lake. This, I won't play it for you, but this is one of his YouTube videos, and it's at a conference in 2017 that Lynn and I were at. We're in the audience. We're somewhere down in the bottom right hand of this little picture here. And there is a link here, which I will copy and paste into the chat when I can get round to that later. And so anybody who wants can cut and paste that. But in that, Ian's type 1 diabetic, and he says how to claim your right to normal blood glucose. And if you just Google Ian Lake YouTube, you'll find several of his other videos, which I would highly recommend having a look at.
Yeah.
Of course, because Ian is not your doctor and he's not examining you, he can't give you medical advice, but he can give you general information to inform your discussions with your own doctors. And if your own doctors are just flatly contradicting you, I'd urge you to try and look for another one. They are out there. I've changed doctors now. It takes a lot to actually think, eventually, this doctor isn't doing me any good. Can I look for another one?
Yes.
But I have done it 2 or 3 times with things like diabetes consultants. In fact, no, I was about to change my diabetes consultant. She wasn't getting anywhere. And I was doing low carb despite her advice. But I was telling her what I was doing.
And she wasn't happy with it.
And I was about to ask her to transfer me to one of her colleagues who might not be as obstructive as she was. I wasn't going to say it in those terms. But before I could say that, at the clinic I turned up at, she said, don't come to these clinic meetings anymore. You're not diabetic now. But I absolutely was and still am. But what she meant was my glucose, doing what I decided to do, was working much better than the advice that she was giving me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, just like Linda said, she doesn't listen to the dietitians. The dietitians are the slowest ones to educate, I'm afraid. Some,
They do seem to be.
some of them understand it. What I've found is all of the healthcare professionals, as somebody said earlier, none of them wants to hurt you, but they have to treat you in what they think is your best interests, but based on their training and their experience. And if they've never seen anybody put their diabetes into remission, or never seen anybody lose weight without being hungry or craving, they find it hard to believe a patient will come along and claim that it can be done. So, you know, when you succeed, if you're still going to the doctor, just make sure they know all about it. So at least you're educating them.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was really just wanting to show Trevlin, and
You're still sharing.
yeah, I'm still screen sharing, just to show what can happen. 50 years ago, I was slim. Now I'm slim. In the middle, things all went horribly wrong. And it took me a while. At one stage, I weighed more than twice what I weigh now. That was when I was living in America. But it wasn't just about losing weight, I think, because the dark line is my weight. And some of you will have seen this before. And you can see I was good at losing weight and just as good at putting it back on as it went up and down, until just right of the center. I suddenly lost a lot of weight quite quickly.
That's when we found the low carb lifestyle.
That was when I found out about first low carb, and then about intermittent fasting. And the dots at the bottom were my blood glucose. And to begin with, they seem to go hand in hand with the weight, but at some stages, the weight was creeping up and the glucose wasn't. And what I think is not that being fat makes you diabetic or being diabetic makes you fat. It's that there's something else that makes you fat and diabetic. And that's the metabolic syndrome and the insulin resistance that Rachel was talking about. And it's taken me a long time to understand. And little by little, I've learned more and more over the last 7 or 8 years. Oh, sorry. That's the rest of my slideshow.
Okay. Thank you.
That was all I wanted to show.
All right. Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Louis. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. We appreciate feedback. Linda, you were on very, very early, and I know you've been sitting there patiently waiting and listening. Thank you for staying with us. Anything you want to share with us, or feedback or anything, please, or questions?
I've nothing really to ask. So I think we just about covered it today with everybody's input and Rachel's talk. I just wanted to say I fell off the wagon 2 days ago, so I'm having a hard time getting back on it again, but I will do it. So somebody was talking, maybe it was yesterday on the Facebook about OMAD. I've been doing it for a week and a half now, but I'm finding that it's really hard for me to maintain because I get shaky. So I need to eat a little bit of something in between. So I fell off the wagon. I ate the wrong thing.
Okay. I mean, the thing on that is, if you're trying to do OMAD and you're struggling, then don't worry about doing OMAD. Far better to reduce your carbohydrates and eat 3 meals a day than to do OMAD and then fall off the wagon at the end. And if you have to eat some cheese, a slice of cheese or something like that, that's okay, because that will reduce your hunger. There was an interesting comment put on yesterday. Somebody said about sweet cravings. And then another person posted that when she has these sweet cravings, that won't go away. She goes and brushes her teeth, and the taste of the peppermints seems to cure it. And I thought, well, okay, fine, if it works, it can't be wrong. But it's, you know, we do have choices, and don't feel that there's somebody looking over your shoulder saying, oh, you gave in there. No, at the end of the day, it's doing what you can manage. But the obvious thing is to keep off the carbohydrates. That's the first thing that's going to make a difference. It really is, honestly. And if you feel that you have to just plug a gap, then grab a piece of cheese or something, you know. I don't know.
But I do.
Yeah.
I do. I only have 1 meal a day and I feel okay, but occasionally I get not a lot shaky, but you know, sometimes you just feel a bit dithery, and I've done it today, and just grab a couple of pieces of cheese, not a lot, just a couple of fingers, and have a drink, and it just takes that edge off until your meal.
That's what I find, Anne, because
Yeah.
you know, Monday is my gym day. I have a personal trainer via Zoom on a Monday. And I find on a Monday, I need to have something after I finish my training.
Yeah,
It's the only day I feel the need to have something at lunchtime. I could quite happily go for longer than one meal a day, you know, go for longer than 24 hours. I just don't feel the need. I'm just eating really, because John obviously needs to eat.
Well, it's not that I need to eat. I've got into the habit of eating. What I do first thing in the morning is usually now, instead of coffee, I have some of Lynn's homemade bone broth. And you can look up, you can find all sorts of recipes on the internet. And that's quite good, especially if you're struggling. Some people struggle when they reduce their carbs. And something like bone broth, in Jason Fung's eyes, doesn't really count as eating.
No.
But it's got minerals and vitamins and basic electrolytes in that tends to stave off high headaches that some people get, or the keto flu that you might hear about.
Yes, because I make my bone broth about once every few months. And I put it in the freezer. I freeze it in ice cube bags. I pour it into that, and then I just freeze a lot. So if John needs it, I could just break off an ice cube bag, 1 or 2 cubes, and top it up with boiling water, seasoning, and the Worcester sauce, and that's him done. That keeps him going for the rest of the day.
And I find a hot drink is satisfying.
Absolutely.
Stops
Yeah.
you.
Okay, thanks for that. Jonathan Lawrence, very quiet. How are you doing, Jonathan? You okay?
Yeah, just taking everything in.
Okay, and you're type 2 diabetic, aren't you, Jonathan?
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that you haven't had a HbA1c test for quite a while, but you have been writing down all your bloods, so that when you go to the doctor, you'll have evidence again to show the doctor?
The last HB I'd done was in, I think it was January or February, and it was 52. So.
But what's your blood? Because you write down your daily blood readings, don't you?
Yeah.
So that when you go to your doctor, you can say, look, this is evidence here. These are my blood readings.
Yeah.
And therefore he can make a decision. Yeah, there you go.
Not to see dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, like when I first got diagnosed, the HB was 97, and it came down to 80 something, 60 something, 60. Now, like I said, it was 52 now. So I'm just hoping it'll come down to when I get next time a test, it'll be in my 40s, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you got one book, Jonathan?
Pardon? No, not yet. No.
You haven't, no, because they'll only do it in, well, certainly in Gloucestershire where we are, it's every 3 months.
Yeah.
Because it's all the cells replace themselves every 3 months. Everything is replaced, so it's a long-term test. So it's no good saying, you know, I'm going to be good for a few days before the test. It doesn't work like that.
So I know it's based on 3 months. Yeah.
But at least Jonathan's got the evidence there.
Yeah.
You know, so he's got an audit trail, if you like.
That's right.
And they can make an informed decision based on that. It'd be interesting to see what they've got to say about it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I'm not type 2 diabetic. Right, it's you know.
There's someone at the, I don't know what you can see on your screen, Trev. Is it Monya?
Yeah. I don't know if she's muted. I don't. Maybe she can hear us. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But she's with us, so that's the main thing. That's good news.
Yes.
So is there anything that we've missed out? Anybody got any questions for anybody? Anybody want to make a statement? Anybody got anything interesting? Go on, Amanda, please.
I've got a non-scale victory because it's been a long time since I've had a scale victory, but we won't talk about that. Yeah, no, what I was really proud of today is I have support workers a couple of times a week, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. So often one of them, Tom, he's 26, he often come round and I'm in the middle of a Jason Fung or Dr. Bickman video or something. And I am a little bit like, I will talk someone to the death about nutrition now if they're willing. So and he's become quite interested in it over the last year, and his parents are my age, which is quite bizarre because I forget that I'm old enough to have children or adult children. But and yeah, and so he's been struggling with lockdown and so on, and he's been referred to see a counsellor, and he saw a counsellor last week. He's seen him for a couple of weeks now, but her advice to him last week was that he should eat eat snacks. He should be eating every couple of hours to keep the sugar levels up.
That's the worst advice.
Lots of carbohydrates and so my non-scale victory is the fact that he looked and went, why on earth would I want to keep my insulin raised continuously? And I love the fact that that was his response to her. It made me feel so proud. Of which she was utterly horrified and said, well, what on earth have you been looking at? And he said, I've just been reading and learning about the body and metabolic health. And she said, well, you know, people have different opinions, but as far as I'm concerned, you need to keep your sugar levels continuous, and you need to eat every couple of hours to do that. And so he said he felt, you know, obviously he isn't going to take that on board, but he just felt really good to have that knowledge and that in that moment to know that that wasn't good advice. Yeah. But I just feel like a proud mother, even though I'm not a mother.
Well done, Amanda. Well done.
Well, to counter that, my recent glucose readings are almost a straight line now, and I'm only eating either 1 or 2 meals a day. Yeah. So, you know, there's 18 hours in the day where I'm not eating, but I don't die for lack of energy or food.
Because John's actually wearing a glucose meter at the moment, and we just ordered a couple more to go over the Christmas and New Year period to see what happens. And that it is recording almost a flat line.
I would really love to try one of those. I really would.
The other thing to bear in mind is it's not always just the food that affects your blood glucose level. Yeah. Back in August, I had some sort of event in the heat wave, and I've been quite unwell since. But it's finally been put down to heart problems, coronary artery disease. And despite all my efforts reversing my diabetes, it was too late really for me. I've been diabetic so long that heart disease inevitably progressed. But being low carb and intermittent fasting has made me last much longer before it came to the crunch. And at that time, I think I was so stressed and so anxious because I was iller than I'd been for years and I didn't know why. And now that I've got a diagnosis and an explanation I can understand and a plan for treatment, my stress has diminished and my blood glucose has returned to normal. And during all that time, I carried on eating exactly the same things in roughly the same meal patterns. And so it's not just the food that can affect your blood glucose. And Rachel touched on that, I think, in her talk.
Yes.
And I think that's largely my problem with cortisol. And I'm not stressed. I'm not a stressy person, far from it. But my body is stressed through thyroid problems and the constant pain. And even, doesn't matter, I can meditate for 24 hours. It won't reduce that, you know. So for all that I do, I don't see, you know, I haven't seen a loss in the scales for nearly 2 months. And that's included a couple of 48-hour fasts, OMAD the rest of the time, reducing my fat intake enormously, and yet nothing changes on the scales. But, you know, I feel great. And I think I am still losing inches. I feel like I'm getting smaller.
Yes, my weight is not changing very much. But I am getting thinner. I've actually got some trousers on today that I've only bought about 6 weeks ago because the other ones were falling off, and these are starting to feel a bit loose, slack around the waist now. And I say I've only worn them about 3 times. So this could be expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I think with John, because he had this event in July, August time, and as he said, you know, he didn't know what it was, and I did some reading up, and I said to John, I think it's because of your stress, and he said no, but I think it has proved that, because he did actually have an HbA1c test in Oxford, not our local place, 6 weeks or so ago, and he had a raised HbA1c. He was actually coming in as pre-diabetic, which he hasn't been for about, I don't know, 10 years.
Can I just ask, sorry, can I ask a question? Is there anybody here who doesn't understand HbA1c? Is that something new? If you don't, just put your hand up and I'm sure John and Lynn will explain it. Did you all get that? You're all okay with HbA1c? Is that you, Renee?
Renee is, yeah.
Do you want Renee?
There are 3 measures of monitoring your blood glucose, and they all have different purposes. And I think ideally you need to know about all of them, but you don't necessarily need to monitor your glucose in all 3 ways permanently. There's the daily fingerprint test, where you stick a lancet in your finger and put a drop on a little test strip, and it gives you a reading in your little glucose meter, which tells you, this is a spot check, it tells you at that moment what your glucose is. But if you then eat something, it could sky high. Mine can double in an hour if I eat the wrong sort of food, if I eat some carbs. That's the daily test. Then there is the HbA1c, which is a test that you have to go to the surgery or the hospital to have done. And that goes away to a lab, and that calculates what your average blood glucose was over the previous, it's about 3 months. Yep. And you can't cheat on that test, as Lynn said, because it averages over 3 months. And that's a good average, but it's like driving along a long road, an average speed just within the speed limit. But you could be 100 times on that long journey. You could be above the speed limit, which you don't want to be. So the average is good as well, because it's some measure of how consistent you've been, but it won't show up any peaks and troughs. And the third way, which anybody can do, I think, without involving a doctor, is to use a continuous glucose meter like I do. And that will tell, the one I've used, because I can't afford the better one, is a reading every 15 minutes. And you can download that onto a computer and analyze it and display it. And that will show you where the peaks and troughs are. And that's very useful if you keep a note of your meals. And you can then look at that and say, that meal spiked my blood glucose and it stayed high for hours afterwards. Yeah. And what I'm seeing at the moment, because I'm just sticking to the things that by habit I've got used to, is that my blood glucose is normally right in the middle of the ideal range. And after I've eaten a meal, it goes up to the top of the ideal range. Whereas before I got better and better at the low carb stuff and the, reducing the number of meals a day, it would surge after meals and come back down again. Yeah. So I think all 3 measures are very useful.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Has anybody else got any questions or any comments? Louis, sorry, how are you doing, Louis? You okay over there in Canada, right? How have you found it? How have you found this meeting? Has it been informative, or what's your takeaway, please?
Well, I like the sharing, like the talk, of course, just reminded me of things that I knew already, but it's good. It's like a sharing group, I'm actually right now, I'm in isolation for 2 weeks in a hotel, so, and can't talk to anyone. So it's nice to be able to share with other people.
Yes. That's right.
Okay. Renee.
This is preventive isolation, because I'll be traveling to Nunavut, which is Eskimo country. And so they don't want any COVID-19 there, so they make sure that we don't catch it.
All right, okay.
Like it.
Yeah. Okay.
So all I get is hotel food,
Oh, well,
makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
burgers and fries.
Oh, wow.
The traditional Inuit diet was extremely low carb, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no carbs because it wasn't available.
It's pure meat, wasn't it? It's just carnivore.
But now that they're eating a sort of Western diet, very high carb.
They're eating. They love Coca-Cola, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that carbohydrates, as many people have said, and I now believe, is a non-essential nutrient. So I'm going to come to Renee. Hi, Renee. How's it been for you today? I'm so glad you're still with us. Thanks for sticking.
Yes, I'm very glad to be here, and I also, like the unity, and we're all, about the same age, it looks like. Not, we're older and wiser now, so we're not so quick to, just think about our bodies and how cute we look or how handsome we look. We're more about health and, having good quality of life and, having good quality food. And so it's just good to be in a number that agrees, that it's about health, and, it doesn't cost a lot, really having self-control, and, it encourages me to see other people doing it so I can do it too. And, it's just one day at a time. I've actually been in recovery from adult child of alcoholics and overeating for 30 years. And this has really been a deeper understanding and just another way to, have a manageable life. And so I'm so grateful. I'm just very grateful for everybody sharing and just understanding how, how much worse it could be. I'm not diabetic, I'm pre-diabetic. So I feel like I'm getting a warning sign and getting a lot of wisdom on how to live. And, I'm very faith-based, and I believe that our greatest misery can be our greatest ministry. And I have dealt with some kind of body issue or overweight or trying to look good my whole life. And I feel led to one day write a book on this. And so this is not only for my health, but I want to pay it forward. So I'm just thankful and grateful for all the info. We're not alone. And it's so nice to know that. So even in lonely Alaska, is that where you are? Can get much lonelier than that. So I'm so glad we can all, be comrades in this. So yes, I'm very encouraged.
That's really, really fabulous. That is very, very good. Linda, you're over there in Canada as well. We might as well come to you and see what your thoughts or any feedback you want to give us, please, or help.
I was just saying, last week, I think John said that he was living in America for a long time, and that,
yes.
Was it John?
Yes, yeah.
And that how his diabetes got out of control in America. And it's a little bit the same in Canada too. They're not very forward thinking here. It's very difficult to find a doctor that believes in low carb or reducing insulin. They have you on high doses of everything.
Yeah.
I only live an hour away from Dr. Jason Fung, which is would be really good if I could get into his clinic, but with the pandemic right now, they're not accepting any registrants. So I'm hoping that next year I can get in to see him, because I think sometimes our doctors or our diabetes advisors, that they mean well, but they often send us into the wrong area, because for almost 30 years I've been high carb because I've been following a diabetic diet here in Canada. Yes. And I wanted just to ask him,
yes, yes.
You have a really interesting take on the insulin and how to titrate it or how to reduce it. We don't have that in Canada so much. It's you have to take a certain amount and keep at that amount. As a type 2, it's confusing for me because I've been on it for like 20 years, but Dr. Jason Fung says type 2s don't need insulin. It's the other way around. So I wonder if you could just, is it okay, Trevelyan, if I just ask you the question?
Yeah, it's by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to keep it short. The protocol in UK and in America or Canada as well is that the type 2, they start you with oral medication, which is usually glycoside or metformin first. If you don't manage to control your diabetes with oral medication, then eventually as the weight goes on, because insulin actually is a hormone that increases your weight, unfortunately. So as soon as both of my parents were on insulin, they increased the weight. The weight is a vicious circle. So the weight goes up and they need more medications, and eventually they ended up in insulin. But in the past, many years ago, when we were studying pharmacy, they told us that they have to keep the insulin to the set amount, no matter what. But now it's progressed, the science is progressing, and the protocol in hospital is if a person with diabetes type 2 is very body aware and they know what's going on with their body, they've had the diabetic for a long time, in a way you can sense how much insulin you need. Because when you reduce your carbohydrates, obviously it's common sense, you don't need as much insulin. If you were on 20 units of insulin before with a high carb diet, there is no way you need that much insulin, because obviously you get hypos. So you have to adjust your insulin to come lower and lower, and hopefully after a while that you've been on intermittent fasting or on ketosis, you won't need insulin at all. Does that answer your question?
It does in a way, and except that our medical community is not quite on board with that yet.
But I think what Soha's saying is, and it was mentioned before, and this is where you've got to get your head around it. You either do what's best for you or let them dictate what they just want to tell you. So you have now to make an informed decision. Are you going to take control over what you know is not a good idea, that's a good suggestion, or just stick with the bad advice that Soha is saying? And it seems to be John's shaking this and agreeing as well, is that you do it according to the needs, really, because the insulin is only there to remove the excess carbohydrates from the excess glucose, I should say, from your blood. So if there's it's a smaller amount of glucose in the blood, you don't need that large amount of insulin in which to remove it. You know, where have you gone? She's gone. I've lost her.
Thank you.
Oh, you're there. Sorry. Yeah.
No, she just moved.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so does that make sense to you? But I mean, again, let's sort of reiterate, you know, just listen again, please.
Yeah, and Linda, do you know about Jason Fung's fasting method Facebook group? And they have a program. It's a paid program. I'm not trying to sell it, but I have to declare an interest in that. I know Jason Fung slightly, and Megan Ramos is program director even better. And I'm not enrolled in that program, but I know that certainly for Americans, the cost of that program probably compares very well with the cost of the medications they'd have to take if they let their diabetes get out of control. So if I were an American, I think it's slightly different, isn't it, in Canada, because your system is sort of probably combines all the bad points of the American system and the UK system.
Well, you know, in Canada, if you're under 65 and you don't have work benefits, I was paying close to $800 a month.
Wow.
Being a diabetic for my medications. I have to tell you, it bankrupted me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would do.
It's not that much different. We have free healthcare here, but diabetes isn't considered one of those major diseases like heart failure and kidney diseases, unfortunately, but it precipitates those diseases. So
yes.
It doesn't make sense to me, but diabetic care is really expensive. And I'm okay now because I'm over 65, so I get everything free. Plus my meter, I get my meter, I take my blood sugars as many times a day as I want. Yeah. But I had to wait till I was 65 to get that. And I got diabetes when I was like 29.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
And in the UK, even before I was 65, once I started taking medication for diabetes, it was completely free.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even before that, with our NHS prescription charges, it was effectively a nominal charge for the medicines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my sister and my brother both live in the UK and they've always had theirs free, but my sister cannot get a monitor free. And they keep telling her at the diabetic clinic that she goes to, and she lives in Yorkshire, that it's not necessary to monitor your glucose levels. It's just not necessary. Over here, it's sort of like mandated that we monitor our glucose levels. So Nothing is standardized.
That's interesting because round about the year 2000, 20 years ago now, they started handing out meters to type 2 diabetics.
Yeah.
And I used that meter to really refine my diet. And eventually, when I knew about low carb, for about 12 years, I didn't really know what the meter was for, but I used it. And then I found low carb, and I found using the meter I could eliminate harmful foods. Then the general policy changed, I think it was because of money. And they said type 2s don't need metering.
Yeah.
And
especially if
I argued with my doctor that metering was what allowed me to keep my diabetes under control and allowed them to take me off all the diabetes medicines. And they accepted that. But I had to make a very strong case. And it was only because I had a good relationship with my doctors. And they realized I was pretty aware and I was wanted to collaborate with them in accepting responsibility for my healthcare, that they allowed me to carry on doing this.
And actually, John is still registered as a diabetic at the doctor's surgery even now. Diabetic, but diet controlled.
Yeah.
That enables him that we still get the testing strips.
That's right. Because one of the people earlier, I think, said his diagnosis has been changed now to recovered or cured or something. Yeah. But my doctor, I think, to help me, because she wasn't allowed really to say that I'd done well, changed my diagnosis to type 2 diabetes controlled by diet.
Yeah.
So she could carry on supplying me with the test strips
Yes, so we still get
that she knew I was using to control my diabetes.
Yeah.
Even though the senior partners in her practice officially didn't recognize what I was doing.
Yeah. He was very much going strictly according to the guidelines, and diabetics, type 2 diabetics, don't get testing monitors and strips.
It's basically the same here. I can't get my strips or my sensor, because I use a sensor, unless I'm on insulin. And the minute I stop going to the pharmacist to pick my insulin up, they'll stop supplying me with my monitoring strips and that. So I have a whole fridge load of insulin.
But I hear a lot of Americans in Facebook groups comment that they can buy monitors and test strips quite cheaply in Walmart or Costco or for our supermarkets, much more cheaply than they can get using their medical insurance.
Of course.
I think in Walmart, I don't know about Costco because I don't go there, but Walmart, there's still about $79.
Wow.
And so converted into English pounds, I think that's like £50. So they're still quite expensive.
It is expensive.
But you can get them cheaper. I'm just going to Google it now, and there are quite a few of them around. Here's one. I think this is one about.
Last time I looked, I thought they were down to about £20 for.
Well, I'm just going to share. the screen now, John. Just bear with me a second. Let me just find my way. Let me find my way back here. Let me just go on to.
I mean, it depends on your monitor, the brand of your monitor.
Yeah.
Mine's
strips cost a lot more, even if the monitor is cheaper. So sometimes it's a false economy to buy a cheap meter.
I mean, that's £22. Again, I take Amanda's points. I'm not an expert on these things, but it's better than nothing, surely.
Yeah, it's the consumables that cost you money in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like if you buy a cheap printer for your computer.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost much, but the ink will cost you a fortune if you do much printing.
Yeah.
It's a good
Actually,
analogy.
the monitors are not very expensive, but the strips are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you get a Keto Mojo in Canada easily? Because their strips are much cheaper compared to more traditional ones.
Yes, I believe that you only get 25 strips.
Yeah.
Whereas with the where the 3-style one that I have, it's 100 strips.
No, I do buy them in 100 strips a time with the Keto Mojo. I buy them in 100 strips, but they work out a lot cheaper. That's over here they do. I mean, and I have to import them from Europe. I can't buy them in the UK, but I know a lot of people in America that use the Mojo. Use the Mojo because the strips are a lot cheaper there as well. But I don't know if that's the same in Canada.
I don't know. I've heard of the American Keto Mojo. I haven't heard of anything in Canada, but maybe we can get it on Amazon or somewhere.
Yeah, they do sell it on Amazon in the States, so might be worth checking out. I know I think the Mojo does cost a bit more than some meters, but because the strips are a lot cheaper, you kind of end up saving a lot of money.
Yeah. I prefer the sensor. I don't know if you can get that in the UK. So we wear it for 14 days.
Yeah, that's
This one.
You have that as well?
Lynn's got one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I put mine right here too.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, John does his at the moment every 4 hours. Is that right, John?
No, as long as you scan it at least once every 8 hours. I use the Freestyle Libre.
Yeah, that's what mine is. A
Yeah, and mine.
Freestyle Libra. Yeah, same one.
But that cost me about £100 a month.
And that was free for me because I'm over 65. But it would have been like $400 if I had to pay for it before.
Yeah.
Do you have to pay for yours, Lynn?
No, not now. It was before, but no, she's changed me to it. She's just let me have that because then they can monitor, but I have to at least 8 times a day.
Right. She's under 65, Linda.
What is showing us now?
What's John showing us?
That's that I've just scanned now, and that's what my glucose is at the moment.
Can you see the flat line? It's almost a flat line.
And this is about an hour and a half, 2 hours after lunch.
Yours is 7.2, Lynn.
Lynn's is 7.2 now. Wow.
Yeah.
I ate chocolate yesterday, so mine's high. So I'm not showing you.
Oh.
So the chocolate.
The other days it was good, but I went up to like 16 yesterday.
Oh.
Crazy one. Because
I haven't eaten
John,
yet.
are you not a type 1 diabetic? Or you're not a diabetic?
They classify me over as a type 2 over here, but one of the doctors I went to see said I'm in between.
Yeah.
1.5.
What's that, Louis?
She's a 1.5.
Yes, that's it.
1.5.
That's right.
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah, type 1.5 diabetic. I like that one. That's good, though. Yeah.
I don't know what I am. I need to get checked.
Well, you're not I1. Your blood sugars are 4, 5, and 7.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, my HB thing was 47. So they said you're right on the borders.
Yeah.
Being pre-diabetic. So then I sort of went on this different way of eating that Trevelyan started, and eventually I lost 2 stone really quick, and I do check my blood sugars. I've not had chance to go and get them rechecked to the hospital because of lockdown and everything else.
But you're not bothered now.
They're always between 4 and 6.
Oh my goodness.
3 points, Amanda.
Well, I haven't eaten since yesterday, obviously.
What's yours, Amanda? I missed it.
3.8. Just did it.
Whoa! Wow.
Yes. Well, my next meal
I'm
is
6.2 and I haven't eaten for 14 hours.
Well, my next meal is tomorrow afternoon, and my last meal was tomorrow night. My last meal was last night. I'm on 48-hour fast, ongoing. You know, 1 meal every 2 days, ongoing. So,
so what's your sugar? What's your glucose?
I never check it because I don't feel the need to, but I am going to do it. I've ordered on Amanda's say so. Amanda, you've caused me to spend money. You've pushed me into
How dare you, Amanda?
You've pushed me into buying a Keto monitor. So I'm waiting for that to arrive from our friends in China, which we'll get here in due course, no doubt.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, good for you. And so yeah. I've tried the pea strips, and they were okay, and they were giving me an indication. Is that yours? 1.
So that's my keto. Yeah.
A ketone.
Oh yeah, 1. Okay.
Which is surprisingly low considering my glucose was 3.8. Not low, but it's normally a bit higher than that.
Yeah.
Quite low, yeah.
Yeah, but the higher the glucose, the lower the ketones.
Yeah, but the glucose is really low. 3.8 is really low.
Yeah.
If you were in hospital, Amanda, they'd be forcing.
This is mine here. This is a breath.
Oh, you got the breath one. Amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love one of those. I hate pricking my finger.
You breathe.
Yeah, you don't need any. You don't need any strips. You know, I don't know if it's really accurate, but you don't need any strips.
Yeah. I've heard
wow.
that it can be a bit inaccurate, but they give you an overview. If you measure yourself so you get an idea of your own pattern, then
Yeah, all you need is to change the battery, you know, a couple of times a year or whatever.
Yeah, amazing.
Does that help you, Louis? Does that help you? I mean, do you keep an eye on your ketones? Because
I do, yeah, because I have to.
Are you just showing off now? I've had to hurt myself for that.
We're going to get his reading in a minute.
Yeah, 3.8.
3.8. Okay.
Oh, we're twins.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just really
Same as
good,
Amanda.
that. No, but Amanda's was 1.
No.
Oh, blood.
No, blood was 3.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
That was a keto. The other
Those
one.
are ketones, aren't they?
Yeah.
And do you understand? Do you understand how you get into ketosis?
Yeah, by avoiding carbs.
Good. Right. Yeah, that's it. That's the trick. That's the secret.
Yeah.
You get into ketosis, you're burning body fat, provided you're not eating it, and
well, that's the problem. Is that I'm eating it.
Well, if you've already lost it, but you can be in ketosis and eat a lot of fat, but you won't be losing weight. I didn't work for me anyway because I wasn't getting my ketones off the fat I was wearing or carrying around with me. I was getting the ketones off the fat I was eating, and lots of people, wanted to argue with me about that, but that doesn't matter.
Well, Rachel's come back.
This is fabulous. This is because
you're right, because I'm the proof of it. You know, if not even in ketosis, I can still gain weight.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Rachel, back in the room. Welcome back. We've had a fabulous afternoon. And lots of good feedback. So now that Rachel's in the room, she's very, very kindly agreed to come back, having picked up her children from school and dumped them in McDonald's.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm only joking, Rachel.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. They might come running in with the dog, so please excuse that. But we're all a bit feral in this house.
So is there anything anybody wants to get back to Rachel on, having had our conversation and got used to speaking out? Any questions that have come to mind now that Rachel's back in the room?
Regarding omega-6 oils, I'll be very interested in that.
This is Steve. Hi, Steve. Rachel, do you want to hear that question again from Steve? So speak up a bit, please.
Hi there. No, I'll be very interested to hear your views on the omega-6 oils and the effects it has on our bodies, the vegetable oils, really. The downside, metabolic syndrome, is it one of the main causes of it?
Well, the modern day diet needs to have a balance of omega-6 to omega-3 oils. And what's happening with our modern day diet is that balance is going askew because we're consuming too many omega-6 oils. Now, we do need to have, we have to have some. We absolutely have to have some. Are you familiar with the term with certain fats being essential?
Yes, fats. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
On the site that this morning, and that is regarding oils, and it does a graph back from the 1800s right up to modern day times, and it shows you about the effects of omega-6, what it does, and it's quite interesting. But obviously, if you specialise in oils, you would have a lot better insight than the likes of
Oh, well, I don't know if I specialize in oils, but I need to know something about oils to do my job. So we have to have some omega-6 oil and we have to have some omega-3 fats, really. And we need these types of fats because the body isn't capable of making them themselves. All the other, so we have to eat them. And really, it's not, again, like I said in the presentation, it's the dose that makes the poison. We need to have the right balance. So if we strip out the processed vegetable oils and we just rely on seeds and nuts for our omega-6s, we're pretty much halfway there. So long as you don't gorge on seeds and nuts, you can overdo it. But if you use them as sparingly or little snacks from time to time, then that's fine. But we don't really need any more than a teaspoon of that type of fat a day.
And what nuts? And what nuts would you recommend? Like pecan, walnut?
Yeah, I would. Brazil nuts are very good. I would probably, if your health priority is to keep your carbohydrate count low, then I would probably avoid nuts like cashew nuts because they're one of the carbier nuts. We can go onto a website. Have you heard of dietdoctor.com?
Yeah. Yeah,
So dietdoctor.com do some infographics. They're brilliant, and they've got one for nuts that range them in order of how carby they are. So I prefer Brazil nuts because of the selenium they have in them, and that's good for thyroid function. So good quality Brazil nuts are a good source of selenium. Yeah, hazelnuts, almonds. I would just avoid cashews probably. They're the carbiest ones. I wonder if I can just jump off here a minute and I'll see if I can find that infographic for you and come back in a minute and we'll have a look at it.
Okay, I'll put you on sharing. Rachel,
yeah, I'll just jump off. I'll close you down, guys, and I'll come back in a minute.
I'll have to screen share with you when you come back then.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go on mute.
Okay, that's good that Rachel's back in the room. Anybody else want to bring anything up about Rachel? Steve, if I can come to you, Steve, what was your reason for asking the question, please?
Well, no, it's one of the things of metabolic syndrome. I did place a video on the site this morning, and it's very interesting. It's something which interests me because the main reason I asked it is I believe I was undiagnosed for years, and unfortunately ended up with atherosclerosis, ended up with a heart attack. And you try working out all the possible things which may have caused it over the period of years. I don't smoke, never ever smoked, always been reasonably fit and healthy. Hello? Always been reasonably fit and healthy. And so you start looking at other things. And the only things which come to mind for me, I believe, is food. And obviously, intake of food and oils. I've lost you. I don't know if I'm live, but
no, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, right. Oh, lovely, yeah. And that was one of the. And funny enough, it was a chemist who said to me, because I went in there after I had a heart attack, and talking about things, and I said I've never smoked. I've always been reasonably fit, and basically our diet actually was reasonably healthy, but it was healthy to what we was told to eat at the time on the scale of Mediterranean, but equally lots of pasta, bread, and lots of starches, the things we shouldn't be eating, which I know now. So it's knowledge really. But the other thing I looked at is for many years our oils were sunflower oil, vegetable oils, and all that, and that goes back basically ever since I was married. So you're looking, over 40 years, and possibly at home when I was with my parents as well. So you take that period of time, vegetable oil, what we was told at that time was healthy, sunflower oils, all seed oils, and has this played a big part in metabolic syndrome and obviously health issues, i.e. for me, heart attack. So it's knowledge really, it's getting a better understanding, and obviously edging your bets now to do the best you can for the amount of time left. So instead of putting your body into any more stress, is to try to do the best you can. I think it's too late to reverse things 100%, but if you can do the best I can, well, that's the way I'll go.
Absolutely, and you're dead right to look at those oils reflectively and question the role they've played. Oh, hang on.
I've done that. I've spotlighted you. I was going to find something new. I hope everybody likes it.
No, I don't know if I can look. Yeah, no, Steve, you're dead right to highlight the role of those oils in your diet over a period of time, and that condition you mentioned, atherosclerosis, that's basically the deposition of fatty plaques over inflammatory parts of your circulation, you know, that network of arteries and veins we saw running through the body. So that fatty plaque and that cholesterol that forms those plaques, we used to think were actually bad things, but they're the body's natural response to fixing patches of the arteries and veins, if you like, that have become inflamed.
It is correct.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you get oxidization of the cell, and that's the first process.
Yeah.
And then after that, inflammation, then after that, cholesterol takes its part. Then you get the proteins, calcium, and various other things build up in it. I've looked into it over a period of time. And one of the worst things when I was looking into foods, omega-6 oils kept coming up all the time. And one of the other foods I've checked in, like stores, they must have thought I was mad. I was reading labels, and what I see was palm oil, and palm oil was in so many things, and it's actually understanding it and having a better understanding of things. Then also once you've got that, you can move forward. And this is
the issue with palm oil is not so much its detrimental effect on us as, say, you would get with highly processed seed oils, but more there is an environmental impact with palm oil. So some people like to avoid it because of that reason.
Yeah.
But any fat that occurs in its natural form will likely be better for you than one that has been processed. So omega-6 oils that occur naturally within seeds and nuts are fine, and in other places. They're fine. It's once they're processed that, like you were talking about the oxidation, and I can talk about, we've got a nice analogy we can talk about next week about how to visualize molecular structures and how they're prone to oxidation, and we'll go over that next week. But yeah, you need these omega-6s, but roughly a teaspoon a day is essential for good health. Because that word essential means we can't make those types of fats in our body by ourselves. We have to ingest them, but we need to get the balance right. It's the balance between the 3s and the 6s that matters.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask a question, Rachel? We use ghee and we use good old-fashioned lard.
Yeah, perfect.
And we use coconut oil, and obviously Anne's got some olive oil, which I tend not to use because I don't want to cook with it, and she doesn't really, unless it's something.
I use butter more than anything.
Yeah. So I mean, I use ghee and likes butter. To me, I mean, just feeding back. What's your thoughts on ghee, lard? And
yeah, fine. If ghee is clarified butter, isn't it? But the butter is a good source of butyric acid, which is very good for us. But yeah, any of the naturally occurring fats, even if you may find sometimes if you're a bit dairy intolerant that you can tolerate butter to a certain degree. So that's worth a try if you've always considered yourself dairy intolerant and you've avoided it like the plague. If you introduce butter, for example, without milk, you may find you can tolerate it, especially if it's from well-managed grass-fed cows as well.
We don't know
so
that.
Okay, well, if you were to have Kerrygold, I think that's a grass-fed butter, or if you were to get local butter from farms and you go to a farm that they claim that they advertise as grass-fed, we're lucky we've got one around the corner. But the way that the cows are reared has an impact on the ratio of types of omega, of the ratios of fats within the cow milk as well. So that's something to consider. But if you choose the right food, and then if you want to progress on from there, you look for the best quality of that particular food. So sort of if you want to get promoted up to the next level of nutrition, you then consider the quality of each type of food that you're eating. So the better that an animal is reared, or the more organic a plant is grown, normally the nutrient value in there is higher, but it's not cheap to do that. So we have to pick and choose. We just have to pick and choose carefully.
Regarding lard, where does that stand on the omega-3 and the omega-6 scale? Where does that...
Well, that's a monounsaturated fat, largely monounsaturated. I will see if I can find. Do you want me to see if I can find that chart now? It might take me a little while.
Is everybody else?
I'll do it next now.
Yeah.
All right, let me just jump off again.
Hey, darling. Oh, you're sorry. All right. I'll see you in a while then. Yeah. Bye. Love you too.
While Rachel's doing that, I've sent everybody a message to let you know that on Friday, this coming Friday at 4 o'clock UK time, so you'll have to check again with your times. And I've got the time zones for America here. So I managed to get them off Google, good old Google. 4 o'clock, I've got a good friend of mine, a guy called Pete Samra, who was 1980, I know it's going back 40 years, but it doesn't matter. He was 1980 World Mr. National Bodyweight Champion. I've sent you all the information. And he was the manager of Gold's Gym, where the film Pumping Iron was made. And they actually had a cameo appearance in the film with Pete Samra and with them Arnold Schwarzenegger. He ran his own health and nutrition company. And I've known Pete for quite a number of years. So I've been in touch with him, and he's coming on Friday at 4 o'clock our time, which is giving him about 10 o'clock his time, thereabouts. So if you want to come on and hear what Pete's got to say, he's no axe to grind. He's not looking to lose weight, but he's happy to share his success. And he's come down a different road. So I'm really pleased that he's going to be here this coming Friday. So I've sent everybody a private message. I'll be putting it on the Keep Fat Club, so you can get the link. Same meeting number as it's shown behind me up here, go that way. Same meeting number there. Everything remains the same. So we never use a different meeting number. We never have a password. So that's 4 o'clock this coming Friday. And it's going to be a one-off. And again, I don't know how it's going to go, but we didn't know how it was going to go this afternoon with Rachel and you guys. But it's been absolutely fabulous. I just love it. I just love being able to be in a position. And I don't mean that like I'm top dog, I'm not. But just to bring people together and just know that it's making a difference in people's lives. And we're all getting healthy together. And we're all on the winning side, you know. So I'm really pleased about that. So that's my little what do you call it, ad break. So I've sent you, as I say, I've sent you a message on this. So if you
so Rachel's, yeah.
Okay, I'm not screen sharing yet, am I?
You should be. Hold on a second. No, not yet.
Hang on, where am I? I've lost you guys. Oh no, I'm on the wrong one. Here we go. Hang on. Let me get you on. I'm a bit slow with IT, you have to excuse me.
Treflin, can I ask where we find the recordings and if the Friday event is going to be recorded?
Say again, my love.
Can I ask where we find the recordings to rewatch them and if the Friday...
Right, well, okay, just to answer that question very carefully. Up to now, I haven't made any of these recordings public for the simple reason that I'm not sure if everybody would be happy with that, but the reason I've done it is because if anybody uses or says something which I think is absolutely wonderful and amazing, then I might get in touch and say, do you mind if we use it? So if everybody's happy, I could find a place for them on YouTube and I could put them down as what's called unlisted, which means that you can only view them with a given code so that general public can't see them. And then it's up to you then to either, well, I would say look after that, don't share it with everybody. But having said that, you know, all we want to do is keep us all safe. And so if we're all happy with that, then I'll transfer them up. I'll transfer this meeting up to YouTube, and I'll share the code. But I don't know yet how we would get it out to you without putting it out to the world. So can I take it a step at a time?
Yeah.
So the first question is, are you all happy for me to put this up on YouTube?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And the second question would be, would you be happy for anyone to have the code, or would you want to keep it amongst ourselves?
I think the code should be kept amongst us, really.
Fine. Okay. So what I would do then is I'd have to create a group and then share that code in the group. So I would have to send you a message and say, are you the right person? Because sometimes when you go on to Messenger and you look at the person's name, the profile picture isn't always the same, and there might be two Lindas or two Steves, and I'm not sure which is which. Like Steve, you say Steve's iPhone. I wouldn't find you on Facebook with that probably on Messenger. It might be a picture of a dog and you call Parrot Face. I have no idea. People call themselves all sorts and have different images. So So if you can private message me now with your do you know how to do private message? It says chat on the bottom. If you just send me through your Facebook or your messenger name so I can find you correctly, and I will send out a test message saying, is this you? In blah blah. Where were you at 2 o'clock or whatever last Monday? And if you don't come back with the right answer, then I know it's not you. If you know what I mean, something like.
Need the evidence.
Yeah. We actually need evidence. Yeah, that it's true. We don't want it to go the wrong way. So that seems like a plan. So I'm making notes of that in the book here, and I'll pass you back to Rachel. And thank you so much, Rachel, for coming back again. Really appreciate it.
Okay, no, that's okay. So, are you seeing my screen now?
No.
Yeah.
No, well, not your shared screen.
We're not seeing the shared screen. We're seeing you.
Not seeing my shared screen. So, hang on. Why am I not? Why? Where's
share screen? No.
Can you put me on shared screen?
I have done. You are a co-host. Have you accepted being a co-host?
I don't know. I can see you in a little box. Can you not see my graph?
Hang on a second. No, you are co-host. I can see you. I can just see you.
So why can I not?
Hang on a second. Let me do one thing. Let me start again. Let me withdraw co-host permission. Right, I've taken off you, and let me make you co-host again. And do you want to make? Yes, I do want to make you. Then do you have to accept being co-host, Rachel? I don't know.
Yeah. How do I? Nothing's coming up asking me to be.
Okay. Well, just try your screen share now. See what happens.
It doesn't come up this time. It's not popping up. Let me. Oh, hang on. Let me maximize you. Right, there we go. It's because you were minimized. And right, here we go. Now this is a screen grab that you're about to see. Can you see that now?
Coming up. Yeah.
Okay, so again, I screen grab everything. Very few of my ideas are my own. I steal good ideas from everywhere that I can. So this screen grab is from a YouTube presentation by a guy called Dr. Stephen Finney. He is amazing, a really interesting guy. He works very closely with another guy called Jeff Folek. And you may have heard of Verta Health if you've come across that company. They're a company in America who basically doing controlled studies into the efficacy of type 2 low carb diets and ketogenic diets in type 2 diabetes. And there are lots of good studies come out from their work. So this is a screen grab from one of his YouTube presentations called Optimizing Weight and Health with a low carb high fat diet. Please watch it, it's fab. And we can see on this chart that the saturated fat is denoted by the red bar. The polyunsaturated fat is denoted by the blue and beige color. One being the blue being omega-6 fatty acid composition and the beige being omega-3, both of which are essential, but we need to get the ratios right in our total diet. And the yellow bar is monounsaturated fat. Now you'll notice that whenever an oil rocks up or a fat rocks up, it is constituted of all three different types of fats. You don't tend to get just saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat missing. It's just that the ratios change. So when we think of animal fat as saturated fat or coconut oil, for example, we refer to it as a saturated fat. What we're really referring to is the fat that is most prominent in that particular oil. Okay. So what were we asking about? What was the question you wanted to know?
The question I asked was about the omega-6 and omega-3 in standard lard, if you like, in natural fat.
Yeah, so if we look at lard, it's just below halfway down, and we'll notice that lard is, I haven't got my glasses on now, does that say 41% saturated fat and 47% monounsaturated fat? So it's predominantly a monounsaturated fat with a trace of omega-3 and 11%, well, a bit more than a trace, 1% omega-3 and 11% polyunsaturated fat.
So what does that all mean?
So basically, this is what I was going to go over next week. But can you put me back on? Can you put let me stop sharing my screen because you need to sort of see my body for this. Not you want to see my body, but this is a really good analogy. So if I can you see me clearly? Can you see my arm?
Not yet. Hold on a second. Hang on a minute. I'm going to. Hold on a second. No, I can't see it yet.
All the screens back on, Trev.
Say again?
You not put all the screens back on.
Yeah, they're all there.
We've only got you on at the moment.
Oh, I don't know why. It must be
If I talk, do I come on?
Yeah.
Can you? Right, I can't see me, but maybe you can see. Can you see my arm?
No, anything, Rachel.
Okay, all right.
You've got your video turned off, Rachel.
Yeah,
My video's turned off. Oh yes, I have. Well done, John. Okay, right.
So I'm
Can
going
you
to
see my
spotlight you.
arm?
I've spotlighted you now. There you go.
So this idea I've stolen from a doctor called Dr. Sarah Myhill, who lives in Wales, and I love the way she explains the structure of fat. So a saturated fat is a bit like a straight arm, and we know that in saturated fat it's made up of hydrogens, oxygens, and carbons, and there's carbon molecules all the way down, and they're saturated either side with hydrogens. Okay, so what that means is you can't get any more hydrogens. There's 4 hydrogens for every carbon. Please, Lord, I'm getting this right, because this is off the top of my head. And each carbon is saturated with hydrogen atoms, resulting in a very stable, fixed molecular structure. Okay, now that's for saturated fat. In other words, the carbons are saturated with hydrogens. There's no room for any other molecules to come along. In an unsaturated fat, one of those carbons has got a hydrogen missing, and what happens is an oxygen comes along and fills the space and creates effectively a kink in the structure. Okay, yeah, you see my arm change from stable and solid to kinked. Now we can divide unsaturated fats into 2 categories, 2 further categories. So we've got saturated fats and unsaturated fats at the top of the chain. Then we divide those unsaturated fats into monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. Now, what do we think mono means?
One.
So in our molecular structure, we've got 1 kink, 1 hydrogen missing. So an oxygen can come along and attach itself, because oxygen is a really reactive element, and it sort of rams itself in and oxidizes that molecule. Well, it will do it under certain conditions. But it's 1 kink. So in a polyunsaturated fat, what do we think poly means?
More than one.
More than one, absolutely. So we'll have another kink here, another kink here, another kink here, and a kink here. And we end up with a kinky molecular structure where lots of carbons have got hydrogens missing and lots of oxygens come in. Now, under certain conditions, those oxygens are prone to oxidation, namely heating, cooking. So that's why polyunsaturated fats can lead to inflammation, because of all that oxidation, because of their cellular structure. So if we go back to consuming saturated fats, we have fats that are stable, and they're more stable under conditions when we introduce heat to them. Does that help people?
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, that's Dr. Sarah Myhill. I have to claim, I can't claim credit when it wasn't my idea. So so that's essentially it. So looking at the ratio of saturated fats, if we can go back to that grid now, where are we? So anything with red in is a saturated fat. Anything with yellow is a monounsaturated fat. So if we look at lard, we can see it's predominantly saturated and monounsaturated fat. So monounsaturated fat is always going to be less prone to oxidation than polyunsaturated fat. It's that 1 kinked fat, if you like. So we can see when we heat lard that the molecular structure of lard is such that the oxidation is kept to an absolute minimum, well, a minimum, for want of a better word. Okay, can you see how that works, Trevlin?
Yeah, absolutely clear now, yeah.
Perfect. So we really want to be avoiding the processed oils that are predominantly blue. Okay, the predominantly blue ones.
What about canola then? Because that's canola, one.
Yeah, now canola oil, is that an American term, canola oil?
Yeah, it's rapeseed oil.
That's what?
It's rapeseed oil.
Yeah, so I think it's really down, a lot of it's down to the processing nature of it. So it's so processed that it's forced to be, that they process it so that the oils don't go rancid over time, so that essentially you extend the shelf life. So it's that processing. Anything that's highly processed just has a bad effect on the on the health. So if you were to have was it Amanda that asked cold pressed rapeseed oil? So if you have it cold pressed, okay, it's still going to have that chemical, that molecular structure, but because you're not subjecting it to heat, where it is prone to oxidation is going to be less. It's going to be less prone to oxidation if you keep it at room temperature. You know. And also, please, if you have oils like olive oil or avocado oil or freshly pressed cold pressed rapeseed oil, please keep them in dark places. Quite often the best oils come in darkened glass or other types of container that you can't see through easily. So keep your oils out of direct sunlight, keep them away in a closed cupboard, and preferably buy ones that aren't in see-through clear plastic or glass, because we don't want the sun getting in there, the light getting in there, because that's when oxidation happens as well. Okay. Similarly, when we heard of chia seeds and flax seeds, once they're milled, especially chia seeds, once they're ground down to a powder, if you like, they're prone to oxidation as well. So if you buy your seeds whole, and then if you need to grind them up, preferably do it that way. But if you've got ground flaxseed or ground chia seed and it's been in your cupboard for a couple of years, it's pretty oxidized, and that oxidation process is similar to what happens in the oils. Okay, it's just
I read somewhere the same philosophy should be applied to the likes of like ground almonds. I keep everything like that in the fridge. But once it's been open, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the minute you change the molecular structure or the cellular structure of something, you are making it more prone to oxidation. And oxidation is fine. The body needs to oxidize. So, I mean, if you breathe, you oxidize your body to a certain extent. Oxidation is an inevitable feature of life. But again, it's going back to the balance. If you are oxidizing more than you should, and you are in a pro-oxidative state, you need more antioxidants in your diet to counter that oxidation. So that's why people talk about the features of antioxidants in various fruits and vegetables. But if you're not in a particularly oxidized state in the first place, there is a school of thought that you don't need so many of those antioxidants in your diet because you're not tipping into too much oxidization in the first place. Okay. The idea is to have a lifestyle that you're not highly oxidized because of the foods that you're ingesting. Okay, is that helpful? I might do a little presentation on that next week if you want, or I can just talk about it again if you want. But I think that arm analogy I think works.
Yeah, because there will be people here next week probably who have missed that and what have you.
Yeah.
Because I know it's getting late now. We've been on 2.5 hours now.
So. Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm not eating tonight anyway. So hey ho, you know.
Yeah. Another analogy I do is I liken the 3 types of fat to the 3 little pigs, and I would say the polyunsaturated fats marry nicely up with the pig who builds his house out of straw. The monounsaturated fats marry up nicely with the monounsaturated fats. Sorry, the monounsaturated fats marry up nicely with the pig who built his house out of twigs, and then the saturated fats marry up nicely with the pig who made his house out of bricks. So the minute the wind picks up, the straw house falls over. So the minute you start heating your oils, that's when you're in trouble. Okay, so it's just another way of ranking those oils. But all natural fats will have all 3 types of molecular structured oil in there, or fat in there, if you like. It's just
Lovely. What about ratios? Coconut oil? Is that fine? Because unfortunately, I've been cooking with avocado oil and olive oil.
Well, that's okay. Don't panic, because that's a hell of a lot better than cooking with seed oil. So
I've used that a while back, you know.
Yeah.
Ironically, British Heart Foundation recommended rapeseed oil, and looking on that chart, it's top. So it's crazy, really, where the professional people, in fact, are trying to help people, but they're making people worse. And
that's partly because in order for them to change their guidelines, it takes decades for the science to filter down. But it'll happen. So don't panic. Avocado oil and olive oil to cook with are nowhere near as bad as those processed vegetable oils, but they're very expensive. So even just to save your pennies, you could try moving on to lard or tallow or butter or
coconut oil, which has been so just as well used. you know.
Yep. So the coconut oil was predominantly, if I go back to that graph, the coconut oil was at the bottom. That's predominantly monounsaturated fats. Can you see right at the very bottom?
Yeah.
So it's very stable to cook with.
Fantastic.
Okay. Some people again have a bit of an ethical issue in the fact that, you know, it gets shipped over here and you've got a carbon footprint with it. But, you know, each to their own. You've got to make up your own decision what's best for you. It's got to be practical for you. And you've got to sort of make a decision based on all the factors that are of concern to you and to you only.
And what's the effects of coconut oil on the body? Antioxidants or anything else? Or will that actually reduce that level down?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know if it'll act as will it act as an antioxidant, or it just won't make you more pro-oxidative. It's just that it's not going to move you down that end. I'll have to look into the properties of coconut oil. I'm not au fait with them.
Well, any of it, lard, any of it, you know, because the thing is, obviously we are what we eat, and this is the thing I've said to the consultant, but he doesn't always agree with me, because the trouble is I've gone down there and I've talked about low carb diet, Jason Fung, Ivor Cummins and various other people, and the findings they've found are fantastic, but unfortunately his teaching is very different, and he's stuck very much in his own groove, and he practices what he's learned over the years.
Yeah. And to a certain extent we can be highly sympathetic, because it's not a doctor's job to ask questions.
No,
it's a scientist's job to ask questions. It's a doctor's job to provide the solutions, or to refer on the solutions appropriately. Now, they haven't got the time to keep referring to the new literature. I mean, a good doctor will, but that's a pressure on their life to keep the solution plate spinning and the sort of question plate spinning. It's really tricky. So we have to be somewhat sympathetic to the medical profession, but those doctors who are starting to become frustrated with the lack of progress their patients are making are often motivated to go back to the literature and ask the questions. And ideally, a great doctor will do that. But I can't blame them if they don't find the time.
Oh, no, obviously they're very, very busy guys, you know, and this is the thing.
Yeah. Keep fighting your corner.
Oh, definitely. All it is trying to do the best thing for all of us, really. You know, obviously knowledge is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is the thing, and as I say, the more we learn, the better we understand things. And obviously, myself, over many years, I've eaten wrong. I've used the wrong oils, thinking they were healthy, thinking they were good, and all the charts of pastas, bread, pizzas, all the wrong foods over many, many years, and unfortunately, it takes its toll. And that's one of the things you end up with. As I said, I think I was a diabetic for many years without knowing. And that generally believe caused my problem with atherosclerosis. Whether that can ever be reversed or not, I don't know. They say it can't, but there's a lot of theories by using reasonable levels of vitamin D3 and MK7 D3. No, sorry, vitamin K2, MK, and vitamin D3. Yeah. Those two work together, and they pull the calcium out the blood, out the plaques, and it puts it in the bones and teeth.
Absolutely.
But whether that works or not, I don't know.
Well, there is an American doctor called Ford Brewer, and he claims that he's reversed his calcification artery. But he's also, like a lot of American doctors, selling his own product.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very difficult. I mean, what I found, and Rachel, I guess, will have seen the same thing, in the public health collaboration, all the doctors are enthusiastic for practicing what you've learned to do and what most of us have learned to do, is doctors who've got experience of it, either personally or with their patients. And the doctors who are too busy to learn about it are the doctors who haven't seen patients like us in any great numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. Fantastic. As I say, for me, knowledge is amazing, and I'm just hoping to learn more and move forward, really. And equally, I look after children, and it's very important now for their future. And this is the thing, because obviously my future in the bar or my history, I've eaten sugars, all the wrong things, and unfortunately it's showing now. Even though I've never smoked, I've never been a big drinker, or anything, and reasonably fit. I used to do exercise all the way, for many years, but nevertheless, these things still surface. And heart disease in my family and my mum's side, I'm the only one at this time. So
can you see after that presentation how insulin resistance is the cornerstone to all these diseases?
All metabolic disease, and the insulin resistance is the main thing. When I said this to the consultant, he didn't want to know. Even though now for him, will be honest, I owe him my life, because the point is, I was having a heart attack and they rushed me in. I had 2 stents. I've still got now the LAD artery, which is 100% blocked. So really extremely lucky to be here. And on the plus side, I'm very fit. I'm still walking 20, 40, maybe 60 miles a week with no problems at all.
That's going some, Steve.
Yeah, so on those sides, extremely lucky. But nevertheless, if I can still help myself and do the right things, I will. And obviously, I'm learning. I'm just scratching at the things at the moment.
I guess you know about David Unwin, do you?
That name rings a bell.
Dr. David Unwin. Look him up on YouTube.
I'll write that one down now. I've wrote down a couple already. I've got Ian Lake.
He's GP, but more importantly, to my mind, he's also a scientist.
Right. Yeah.
He has published some papers, but if you look him up on YouTube, you will find no end of stuff. Fantastic. And he talks about working with his patients.
Yeah. Tim Noakes I like as well, the Australian fellow. He was scientist, A1 scientist. They took him to court.
No, he's South African.
Or South African,
Yeah, I know Tim.
But
got his autograph.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. I've watched a lot of his stuff, and he really talks sense. Another one I like, Ivor Cummins as well.
I met him.
Yeah, oh, fantastic! So brilliant, but they make sense in what they say.
Yeah,
this is the thing, And even myself, I've tried helping myself. I've for many years now, I've been taking vitamin K2 Mark 7 high strength, vitamin D3, vitamin E. I was taking vitamin C, but I'm not for the moment. But you do everything you can, and this is the thing.
Can I just throw another curveball in, Steve? What's your sleep like?
Pretty good. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Because sleep has a massive impact on your insulin resistance and your metabolic health. Huge, arguably more so than food. Some sleep experts say.
Fitbit, on average, it's probably 75 to 80% of that per night. So I'll get sleep. That's on the percentage. So no, my sleep pattern's pretty good.
Dr. David Unwin's one of the founding members of the Public Health Collaboration. So we're all treading in good water, if you like. Lovely. And so I'm hoping to actually invite him to come along one afternoon, maybe for an hour. I know he's a GP, so we might have to have a meeting that's out of hours for him, because I know he travels the world really speaking. So perhaps it just depends upon his availability, and his wife Jen Unwin, she's lovely. But there are plenty of people who we can ask to come along. But obviously, I think that Rachel being here today as our invited specialist, and you're always welcome to join us, Rachel.
Thank you.
At any time, but we do value your time.
Well, no, it was a pleasure doing it. I'm just mindful that I went at 100 miles an hour to try and squeeze it in. So I'm sorry if it was a bit rushed, but I tried to strip the words out and just put pictures in there. So at least if you were bored by looking at pictures and not words. So
well, a picture paints 1,000 words, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That works. But I'm going to draw it to a close now, because we're 4:45, and I do thank everybody for coming along. But having said that, everybody's free to come and go as and when they want. I mean, if somebody joined us now, then I would feel duty bound to stay here. So the fact that they haven't is a blessing in disguise. But as I said, we're going to have this special meeting, this special Zoom thing on Friday and 4 o'clock our time. So and see how we get on with that. You know, that's when my friend Pete Samra over in America. So that would be interesting. But if thank you ever so much, and just stay in touch. Thank you, Soha, for your invaluable input today, because it's good to have you here as a pharmacist. You know, we don't have all the answers, but between us.
Thank you.
You know, and Amanda, you're absolutely amazing, because you are an expert by experience, and we really love you. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you always. And again, I'm going to keep Fat Club. Thanks everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John and Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Bye.
God bless you all.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thanks, Tom. Again, God bless, mate. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Nice to see you over there in America. Bye.
No, I'm sorry, I'm in London.
Oh, sorry, I said I'm in Chicago. I got that one wrong. Where did I get that one from? There you are. Okay. All right, Michelle. Anyway, kiss you, see you in London then. There you go.
Okay, then. Thank you. Okay.
God bless.
See you again.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
Michelle.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.